The winter meeting's kicking off, Steve, with the biggest free agent signing in baseball history. 24 years after Alex Rodriguez set the record here, Juan Soto shattered it with a deal nearly worth 3 times as much.
That is what it sounded like on MLB Network Radio last night. The Juan Soto sweepstakes have officially come to an end. 15 years, $765 million. Incentives can take that up above $800 million. There's an opt-out after 5 years. It's an extremely complicated contract. Best I can understand, it basically means that there's a big-time decision coming about 5 years from now in which he will decide, do I want to make a little bit more money or a lot more money? And he gets to decide that in 5 years. Alex, to me, my biggest takeaway when I saw this, there are 28 teams in Major League Baseball that would see this contract and would live to regret it roughly 2 years from now. The Mets are not one of them. The Mets are one of the 2 teams that can make a deal like this and not feel bad about it because their owner does not care how much money he spends. I had a couple of buddies that I was texting about this with last night, and I was saying how, I think this is a disaster of a contract written all over it. I do not think this is going to age well, and I don't think the Mets care about it. And my buddy was like, why should I care as a fan if this is a bad contract? Like, if... say the Rockies had signed this, or the Giants, better. Wow. But let's say the Giants had signed this, right? If I'm a Giants fan, why do I care that this is a bad deal? Like, it's not my money. Who cares? The reason why I care as a fan if my team signs a bad contract is because then they get stuck. They're stuck with the money. And so, like, you don't have to care about the money that your owner is spending. That's totally cool. I don't blame you at all for that. I care about team building. I care about whether or not my team is going to be able to, like, work around that money that is just quote-unquote dead right now. And if you're the Mets, your owner has given you every reason to believe this is not going to be a problem today, tomorrow, or 15 years from now. This dude's going to be 41 years old making $50 million, probably going to suck at baseball at that point in time, have zero value, and most likely be a net negative for the roster if he's even still playing baseball at that point in time. And Steve Cohen will say, cool, here's my next blank check to write. So for them, smart move, man. Smart move. You can get away with this kind of stuff. For everybody else in baseball not named the Dodgers, would have been a disaster. But I can't say that about the Mets.
It's wild, too, to say that because wasn't this past season for the Mets, trying to, cut money off of the books for him and save money in certain areas? But, yeah. And also save money in the sense of, Steve Cohen, and I need to save, a couple of $50 million so that I can go spend it elsewhere. You're right. Originally, I saw this and I'm thinking, this is not this. This is a Band-Aid over a bigger problem for the New York Mets with Juan Soto. You look at this and say, well, we're getting Juan freaking Soto. That's great, but your all-around roster construction is not good enough for one player to come in and fix your team.
This ain't about 2025, man.
But if I'm the New York Mets...
This is about 2025 to 2032.
Wow. Yeah. Maybe 2025 to 2029, and then Juan Soto gets to decide what happens after that.
Sure. Touche.
If I'm the New York Mets, though, I don't care about one guy not fixing my problem because you know what just happened? I got the best free agent available to come to my team, and it's in New York, which means other teams view this as now a winning spot. And if I got a team that's willing to spend money, this is a perfect opportunity for me. This is the Mets' opportunity to go toe-to-toe with the L.A. Dodgers.
Yep.
Will they? I don't know. Roster construction-wise, it's going to be really interesting to find out. But when I saw it, I'm thinking, Juan Soto does not make the New York Mets a World Series contender, in my opinion. Their team still has a ways to go. But at least it's going to create a lot more interesting in the National League this year.
The Mets just became the #1 free agent destination.
Yeah.
That's what happened here. It's no longer the Yankees.
Over the Dodgers still?
Yes. Because the Dodgers don't spend stupid money. Their contracts, while big, are pretty smart. Mookie Betts was maybe the best bet you can make in Major League Baseball. That guy's going to age like a fine wine. And his contracts, by the way, after seeing what the last couple of years we've seen with some of these contracts, Mookie Betts' deal is one of the best bargain contracts in all of professional sports. The Freddie Freeman deal, a left-handed hitter who hits for crazy average, gets on base at a high clip, and hits to all fields. Yeah, that's going to age well. Looking at Shohei Ohtani, the best two-way player we've ever seen in the history of the sport. Yeah, that's going to age pretty well. Oh, and by the way, he brings in revenue from Japan. Sure, yeah, let's go ahead and sign that guy. There's this windfall of cash that's coming our direction. They sign really smart contracts, even if they are bloated in terms of the overall dollar figure. The Phillies spend crazy money. The Mets are now spending stupid money. They are the free agent destination for people. Like, would it surprise anybody if they still go out and get Pete Alonso? Wouldn't surprise me.
No.
Would it surprise anybody if they end up getting Corbin Burns? Wouldn't surprise me. Would it surprise anybody if they get Corbin Burns and Max Fried? Nope. Because that's the number one free agent destination in Major League Baseball. They are doing now what the Yankees did 25 years ago. They are now that team. They have out-Yankeesed the Yankees. That's where we're at in Major League Baseball in 2024. The Mets are now the free agent, the preeminent free agent destination.
Can I clarify something, because I'm getting heat saying, how are the Mets not a World Series contender? They just went to the NLCS. As it stands right now, if they just do what BK says, sure, I'm all aboard.
Okay, let's clarify.
The roster right now, I'm not all that impressed by.
The Mets went to the NLCS last year. Yes. Also, the Mets roster, and over the course of 162, should not be seen as a top 3 team right now in the National League.
And they
I don't think they're there.
And they just lost their best pitcher to free agency in Luis Severino. And I don't know what their first baseman is set up for. Pete Alonso going back there.
I think they're a good team right now. I think
do
they're a
too.
playoff contender right now. I'm not sure, like, as of today, would they be my World Series pick? No. They would still be the Dodgers. But are they in the conversation? Sure. They're up there. I think they're one of the top 5. Like, it's the Padres, the
That's who I'd have above them.
Diamondbacks, the Dodgers, the Braves, the Phillies, the Mets. Those are the top 6 teams in the National League in some order or another.
And they could still have a big
Cardinals
off
have
season.
that?
No, they're keep going down that list.
Man.
Although
Notice I
BK might
didn't-
have them right there next tier.
Didn't mention a single team from the NL Central.
Yeah, I did notice that.
That's because the bottom of the National League is the NL Central.
Colorado's
Well, and Miami and Colorado. You're right. Colorado might be better than the Cardinals, though.
My biggest takeaway, though, for local reasons when it came to this move,
we could have done this.
no, God, no. I would have cried.
15 years?
I would have enjoyed it if the Cardinals were in on this bidding. It would have been fun, exciting, whatever. They cannot sign a contract like this. I've said in the past, I think they have overstated how much, like, they can't do the Bryce Harper deal. Yes, you can. You choose not to. They can do those deals. They've had $30 million player. Hell, they have a $30 million player currently on the roster that they're trying to remove from the roster. And it sounds like they're going to be able to do so. So to suggest that it's like this crazy thing, no, they were lying to you, and they still they
lied to me?
They could have done it if they really wanted to. But anyways, my biggest takeaway from this as it relates to the Cardinals, their ability to go sign a star just got that much harder.
Bingo.
Because while I do believe they could have done that with whether it's Bryce Harper or Manny Machado or whoever your favorite free agent has been over the last decade that was 25, 26 years old when they hit the market and got this crazy long contract worth a boatload of money. They could have done those. What is the next Bryce Harper contract going to look like now? Is it $500 million? Because Soto's one of one. He is the closest thing to Ted Williams that we've seen in the modern game. This is a one-of-one type of a deal, and he's 26 years old, so I get it. And it was the Yankees and the Mets that were going back and forth for the bidding, so that changes things as well. The next guy that is Bryce Harper or Mookie Betts, Vlad Guerrero Jr., they're probably looking at $400 to $500 million minimum, right? That's where the bidding kind of begins.
Oh, yeah. I saw Bobby Boogie put out today saying, like, basically, if you're Vladimir Guerrero Jr., you just saw that contract and say, okay, yeah, I'll be close to $600 million.
Yeah, the Cardinals can't do that. That is where it's now like, this is crazy. Like, Bobby Wood Jr. got $300 million while still on his rookie level deal. That's something that the Royals could do, the Cardinals could do. 500 to 600? Now we're talking about stuff that those teams, it's just not feasible to get into those waters. And what it means is it puts that much more emphasis and that much more pressure on the Cardinals going out there and developing a star. You have to develop a star that you want to give the Bobby Witt contract to avoid giving out the Juan Soto deal, the next Juan Soto deal. It's not an easy thing to do. Every team in Major League Baseball wants to do it, and a lot of them fail at doing it. But that is the pressure that is currently existing on the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to be able to ever sign the once-in-a-generation type talent or the young 26, 27-year-old free agent. If they're going to be handing out the Harper-esque $300 million deal, the best option is to do what you're talking about, develop them internally, do the Bobby Witt route, develop them, get them to the contract extension. That is very team-friendly contract extension, by the way, as well. Or you end up having to sign a older superstar, right? And that's where you really start to do that song and dance of, okay, how much is too much? Like, the reason you see the deal for Soto so big, because he's so young. If Soto was 30 years old, he's not getting
100%.
$600, $500 million. He might touch the $400 million range. But those are the kind of contracts where you also get kind of snake bitten by of, okay, well, we're going to give out an 8-year contract. we only maybe get 3 years of a really good player in that. And that's the kind of deal the Cardinals also still try to avoid. So they now seem to be kind of pinned in on, if we're going to get a superstar, it's going to have to be somebody that we draft and develop or we acquire. It's what the trades are going to be doing potentially at the winter meetings. We acquire somebody that's young that then comes up through our system, and we develop them and becoming the next face of the franchise.
And the reason why we brought up Vlad Guerrero Jr.'s name is because he's 25 years old. Next year will be his age 26 season. So the year after that, when he's a free agent, he will be 27. Entering the free agent market when he's 27 years old, he's probably going to want a 10 to 12 year deal minimum. And in that setting, you're talking about $400 to $500 million most likely for a player that has the pedigree and has the success that he has had at the major league level already. He has an OPS of about 900 for his major league career. And now if he puts together another season the way that he did last year, dude, you're talking about a guy that's going to get just crazy money on the free agent market. We've pinpointed him as like, if they fail developing that star internally, maybe you could turn your attention to Vlad Guerrero Jr. Not anymore, man. We can go ahead and write that off. That is not something that is going to be feasible for the St. Louis Cardinals in 2025. They have to develop that guy internally, or to you guys' point, go out and trade for him and then develop that guy internally. Regardless, this is why you have to have so much emphasis on your minor league system and on the coaching staff that is at the major league level to extract the most value possible out of those young players, like a Nolan Gorman, like Jordan Walker, like Mason Wynn, etc. They've got to get the most possible this year out of those guys. With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. You guys can get involved in the show. YouTube.com/101ESPNSTL. That is where the graveyard chat is available for you all today. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll get into some NFL quick hitters. T-Bone told me all week last week, Alex, the Rams are the team that you guys got to watch out for. And I said, that's nonsense. And then he bet against them. So we'll get into that coming up in about 15 minutes or so. We'll get to your questions at the bottom of the hour today. But coming up next, I want to talk about my squad. Alex, a signature moment yesterday that Dennis Gates has been lacking. What did we make of it? We'll tell you next here on 101 ESPN.
Missouri knocks off number 1 Kansas in a series that dates to 1907. An unexpected Tigers upset.
How about that? That's what it sounded like yesterday on ESPN as Missouri takes down KU in the border war, the return of the border war, something that honestly I didn't have a lot of anticipation for. We didn't even hardly talk about it on Friday, and that's on me. We should have done more on it, but man, I just have really struggled to get excited about this Missouri basketball team coming off of a disastrous season where you go over in the conference slate, and I knew that it was going to have to take something like that for me to buy back in. And man, credit where it's due. How about Dennis Gates? He gets his guys back on track. The first game of the year, really, I watched it. It was that game against Memphis, and I was like, oh, okay, let's see what they've got. And they got out to this crazy start, this unbelievable start offensively, and then they collapsed, just like they did so many times last season. And so I left that game thinking to myself, same old Mizzou. Can't expect anything more this year. It's just going to be the same old team. And then they started playing really well. Offensively, they really came together against the, terrible teams on their schedule, the directional schools that they play every year. They have like one of the worst schedules up until Saturday or Sunday of any team in college basketball. You get into that game yesterday, and I'm thinking, best bet on the board today is KU. How could they possibly lose this game?
By the way, you throw me under the bus for my rants thing. I remember you all last week. Oh man, Ken Pum's only got this at like a 5-point game. Yeah. I would hammer Kansas on that spread. I think it ended up being a 6.5-point spread, and I would have been dead ass wrong if I had gone out and bet that one. Missouri beat the hell out of them. For about 26 minutes, Missouri wasn't only the better team, they dominated Kansas to the point where, Alex, I don't see this happen very often for Bill Self-coached teams. KU was panicked.
Yeah.
They were panicking about midway through that second half. Now, they made a run, and they did things that Bill Self teams do, which is make it really close in the end and give you a scare. And Mizzou's players stepped up. You had some guys that made huge plays. Anthony Robinson is a stud. What we saw yesterday from Tamar Bates, that's as engaged and impressive as I have seen him since coming to Missouri. He was just named college basketball's player of the week. That is the kind of signature victory that Dennis Gates was looking for. And T-Bone, after the game yesterday, he had a quote that I think resonated with fans in a big way as well.
For making an announcement to tell our fans not to rush the court. You got to be kidding me. I was about to, in game, take the mic and say, rush the damn court.
That is the kind of personality that we've been looking for, Dennis. A signature win, a signature day for Dennis Gates, an awesome moment for Mizzou. And now suddenly I'm thinking about, hey, how do they get into the tournament? Alex, what was your reaction yesterday when you saw that they beat the number 1 team in all of college basketball?
Surprised, because I was like you, thinking like there's no way this Mizzou team has a chance against Kansas, let alone a team that's going to give me any different feel. Maybe not as awful as you were in the SEC last year, but I didn't expect much. Man, to the point that you made of like Kansas panicked in the second half. Look at all the turnovers that they had in that second half. Why? Because I think they realized like, oh shoot, we are down and we got to start rushing this play up the court. And it's like Mizzou's defense at least played sound in that second half against them. But the part that I didn't realize Mizzou had, because the last couple of years it's been all about shooting. You go back to Kobe Brown, that was the one where it was like, okay, you got the guy who could go at least to the net. Man, they dominated in the paint against Kansas. Like, that's the part. Josh Gray was the one that I was honed in on in that game, because you've got a big man who went toe-to-toe with Kansas's big man underneath the hoop. You got out-rebounded, but it's like they were able to play the physical brand of basketball that I didn't think they were able to play. At least they weren't showing the ability to play last year. They've got a couple of guys that are difference makers on the roster right now, and the difference is going to be how consistent you can stay with your game. Because I was also looking at this like, man, Kansas is ranked number 1. That team was missing shot after shot after shot, turnovers when they were trying to rush plays. I don't know if that was Kansas playing sloppy or Mizzou forcing the Kansas play sloppy.
It was both. KU missed a ton of bunnies. Like there were so many close shots that just didn't go in for them. And if they had played that exact same game 100 times, you know that deserve to win-o-meter that they have on Money Puck?
Yeah, like, I take it as religion.
Yeah, so hockey has that. Basketball doesn't necessarily have that. If they had the deserve to win-o-meter for that game, Missouri was probably at like 20%. KU played pretty well for the most part and missed a bunch of open shots. Hey, but guess what? The one game that they played on Sunday, that was the one that mattered, and Missouri was able to get it. It was one of those 20. So, do I think Missouri's a better team than Kansas? No.
Yes. Oh.
Not at all. Do I think that Missouri's guaranteed to make the tournament at this point? No. But that's the kind of game that allows for you to dream on that. And that's what Dennis Gates needed, dude. He needed people like me and Alex and probably you listening right now, if you're a casual college basketball fan, to think to yourself, could they? And if you get yourself to that point, now you're engaged. Now, 2 weeks from now, when Missouri plays against Illinois, I thought going in, that's going to be a disaster. Like, Illinois is going to run them off the court once again. I no longer feel that way. I would pick Illinois. I think Illinois is the better team. But do I think that could be a fun game? Absolutely. Missouri has a really good offense this year, and it might be the best defense we've seen under Dennis Gates. Low bar to clear, but it might be the best defense that we've seen thus far under Dennis Gates.
Yeah, I can tell you, first off, as an Illini fan, seeing that game over the weekend, my ears definitely perked up a little bit going, hell, now it may not be a walk-away win. But, that was one thing I didn't. You mentioned their defense. That was the spot where I just pointed to, and I thought, okay, look, I don't think they're going to be able to get enough stops to beat some of the best teams in the country. Maybe they should be able to win a couple games in the SEC. I thought that. Granted, again, low bar to clear when you win 0.
Sure.
But I thought they were going to have defensive issues all season long. I mean, you watch that game against California. They give up 93 points in that game.
It's so weird, dude, because for like 25 minutes a night, they're one of the better defensive teams in the country. And then those other 15 minutes, they give up these crazy runs and their offense stops working as well. Yeah. Yesterday it happened with KU, where KU goes on this 15-0 run.
But we say this in hockey too. Like, you look at him, you're like, what the hell happened?
You can't have that though. 15-0 is ridiculous.
No,
If the other team starts going out there and going on a run, sure, but you've got to shut it down eventually.
But you expect some type of push at some point. You're right.
Sure.
15-0 run is absurd. You got to find a way to stop it. But it happens, right? Like, you just have that surge.
But it happens in every single game against a Power 5 opponent.
Which is alarming.
It happened against Memphis. It happened against Cal. Happened in this game against KU. Happened all year last year for Mizzou, and it was the reason why they lost so many games. I don't know how you avoid that. Alex, you're right. There will be some runs. Missouri's going to go on runs. The other team's going to go on runs. That's what basketball is. But you got to be able to shut it down eventually. That's my concern against Illinois. Illinois is capable of going on a run and just leaving you behind and never giving the game back. So there are still some questions, some real questions about this Missouri team. But yesterday at least opened up my eyes that they could be something better than we expected. I also wanted to ask you guys this question about it because it relates to Mizzou, but it's also a bigger college athletics, specifically men's basketball and football discussion as well. At this point in the portal era, do coaches deserve a mulligan season? I'm thinking about Dennis Gates last year, where the portal just didn't go the way that he wanted it to. They brought in John Tonje, who right now is averaging 22 points a night for Wisconsin. He gets hurt prior to the season and was never right for Mizzou last year. And that was supposed to be the go-to guy. You guys know this. In basketball, if you don't have that go-to guy and everybody else has to go up a peg, the entire thing just starts to fall apart quickly. That happened to them last year because of injuries and because the portal didn't go as they expected. In football, we saw this with Florida State this year, where they go to the portal, they try to get a quarterback. The quarterback was a disaster. It didn't work for them at all, and then everything crumbles, and it's a lost season. I think Mike Norvell is a pretty good coach. Don't know if it's going to work out for him long term, because 1 year could make things go so sour at a place like Florida State that you're just never able to recover from it. But I think it's right that they brought him back next year. I believe that coaches at this point do deserve a mulligan, and I think last year was that opportunity for Dennis Gates. He's got to take advantage of it, but last year was that opportunity for him. Do you guys feel that way? Maybe more than ever, coaches deserve a mulligan because of how important the portal is, and if you miss on these guys, it's going to be a lost season.
Yeah, I 100% agree that you've got to have some type of leeway for these coaches because the transfer portal, like, you're in on so many guys to try and change the look of your roster. Now, recruitment is still so important, but the transfer portal has taken a little bit of precedent because in 1 year you can flip your team. And if you miss out on 3 or 4 guys that you're targeting, then now you're talking about starting from square one and relying on your recruits. So we complain all the time in the hockey side of things, like how fast coaches get fired when things go wrong. So I do think there needs to be a little bit of a grace period, especially for college basketball, when you're talking about transfer portals. And if it falls flat, give them 1 more year to see what the next year looks like.
Yeah, I think it's fair in basketball more so than in football to give them more of that leeway because there's just such few guys that can really impact the game, right? You bring in guys.
It's the quarterback conversation.
Yeah, like quarterback is the one in
if
college
Drink
football.
next year misses on the quarterback, if it doesn't work out with Miller Moss or whoever his guy is, I'm going to give him a mulligan.
Yeah, that's probably the one position, especially that I would look at in college football that I would give you that leeway on. But I think you're right. I think you get like one mulligan, and then it's okay. Why are we missing consistently? Why are we missing, whether it be in recruiting or in the portal? Of okay, why are we not identifying the right talent? I think you're going to have those years where it's the year from hell where you thought all these guys were going to be these guys that take this next step when you bring them into your program, and they don't. And that's what happened last year with Dennis Gates. If it had happened again this year. Or, it still could technically, I guess. But if it did happen again this year where you look at it and go, okay, why is this not coming together? That's when you should really raise serious questions, because that's a talent evaluation thing, right? If we're going to be critical of the Cardinals and their talent evaluation for the minor leagues, well, the same goes for these coaches. They're just doing it a little differently from the high school and from the portal in terms of what they're trying to bring into their program.
He's T-Bone. That's Alex on BK. If you guys want to get involved in the show, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to do so. We'll get into questions and answers in about 15 minutes. But coming up next, we got to dive into some NFL quick hitters, including the Bills scoring 41, Josh Allen having one of the most impressive performances of the season, one of the best fantasy performances that we've ever seen in the history of fantasy football, and finding a way to lose against T-Bone's Rams. We'll get into that. We'll talk about the Chiefs once again with another close victory as well, coming up next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues lost over the weekend. They'll be back in action tomorrow night as they visit the Vancouver Canucks. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 8 o'clock with Alex Ferrario, then puck drop at 9 o'clock with the voice of the Blues, Chris Carver. And over the weekend in college basketball, the Missouri Tigers took down the number 1 Kansas Jayhawks 76-67. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, we've got Monday Night Football for you as the Cowboys take on the Bengals, and we'll have pregame coverage starting tonight at 6:30. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
All right, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters with Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. I thought yesterday was one of the best games that we'll see all season long, and it included T-Bone's team, so we'll get his thoughts on this first, Alex. The Bills went into L.A., took on the Rams, and those teams combined for 86 points, with the Rams coming out on top 44-42 against Josh Allen and the Bills.
Shouldn't have taken the under.
Those quarterbacks combined for 660 yards and 5 touchdowns. Josh Allen ran for another 80 yards on the ground with 3 rushing touchdowns. I believe I saw yesterday first quarterback in NFL history with 3 passing and 3 rushing touchdowns in a game, no interceptions in that game. You're not going to see a quarterback play a much better game than what you saw yesterday from Josh Allen. And yet, Matt Stafford did enough to be able to beat him. And that Rams offense was a freaking buzzsaw. I don't care who was on the other side yesterday. They were getting their butts whooped up and down the field. When Stafford has a healthy offensive line, a healthy Puka Nacua, and a healthy Cooper Kupp, good luck stopping them. T-Bone, what did you make of the Rams win yesterday? And do you think they are starting to come together to the point where they could be a legit threat once we get to the playoffs?
I think they are coming together, and I don't know if I view them as a threat that can go on a run, but I think they can surprise somebody in the playoffs. I think they're winning this division, guys, and I've been on that train for like the last 5 weeks, and granted, there have been a lot of moments in that 5 weeks where that's looked like a stupid take, but I think they are a team that when they have their pieces, guys, Matt Stafford's still playing incredible football. Like, he's been awesome this season, and sometimes he doesn't have the numbers, but it's because he doesn't have his guys. Puka and Kupp have not been on the field much this season together because at one point one of them was injured early on, and then Kupp got hurt and was dealing with something. Now they're both healthy, and Kyron Williams in the backfield is healthy. He had a solid game as well, rushing for almost 100 yards again. Like, this team can do something. Now, they're going to have to win in that style. Their defense is not going to get a ton of stops. They can get a little bit of pressure on the quarterback with Jared Verse, but defensively, they're not there. They don't have defense.
Thankfully for them, they don't go up against alien quarterbacks in the NFC, so you don't have to worry about that. You will have to worry about the Lions, and they can put up some points on you, but nobody... I don't believe anybody offensively in the NFC has quite the same ceiling as what you get with Josh Allen.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And that's why, like, I think if they get into the playoffs and, like, in the first round, they're going to if they win their division, they're going to host the game. They could beat whoever the wild card team is that they get. I think they're a team that can win a game, maybe 2 in the playoffs if things go their way. I think they're a true threat, and I think they're going to win this NFC West.
I think it's going to come down to January 5th, Rams and Seahawks for the division. And honestly, that's the way it should be. Yeah, you have. And honestly, I don't trust the Seahawks. I trust the Rams more because of that offense. I'm just unsure about this Rams team in the playoffs. Can they win a game and upset somebody? Absolutely, that offense can do so. But, man, they have been so back and forth, and a lot of it is injuries.
Yep.
I have them in just like a tier of their own in the NFC. We talked about the top 3, and then it's the Rams. Can they upset? Absolutely. But they feel a lot like the Bengals to where they also could just blow a game completely.
Yeah, I think they're a little more well-rounded than the Bengals are at this point. I think they also have a better offensive line than what the Bengals do, and they're really well coached, man. Like Sean McVay, by the way, let's give some credit. Got aggressive, 4th down, decided. I said this last week.
Must be watching Dan Campbell tapes.
I said I think that one of the biggest issues that I have with the Rams and Sean McVay is that he, in the biggest spots, puckers up and doesn't get aggressive, and he did exactly that yesterday. 4th and 5, Buffalo 35-yard line. That's the exact situation I was talking about. 3.5 minutes to go. Goes for it, gets it. Tutu Atwell, of all guys, comes up with a huge catch in the biggest possible spot. They end up scoring a touchdown on that drive, and instead of going up 41-35, potentially the Bills on their next drive being able to score a touchdown to win the game, They go up 44-35. Boom, game basically over. And that was important because the Bills did score on their next drive.
And I think that, I always talk about it's always situational, right? It was clear you couldn't stop Josh Allen.
No doubt.
So it made all the sense in the world of, okay, we're not going to win this game on a field goal.
But it surprised you, though, didn't it?
Oh, I did, yeah, because it
surprised you.
Because I can't remember if it was in the regular season, because the Rams opened with the Lions, or if it was in the playoffs. One of those games he had a situation where he could have gone for it on 4th down, and instead he decided to kick a field goal to go up by, I don't remember what it was, 6 or something. And it ended up costing them. They ended up losing that football game. I thought for sure he would kick field goal, especially 4th and 5.
Yep.
If it was 4th and 1, I could have seen where he would have leaned towards it. 4th and 5, and he's going for a play where it's going to Tutu Atwell.
I don't think that was the design. Everything else was covered, and
the fact that he's on the field on 4th and 5 is surprising.
I forgot he was on that team.
All right, on the other side of that
really
game, really quick. Did you leave that game with any more worries than you had previously about the Bills? Their defense has been mostly pretty good this year. Yesterday, give up 44. That's not what you expect out of them. Alex, did it give you concerns or pause about the Bills when they get into the postseason and go up against the best quarterbacks in the AFC?
No, it didn't. I think we said on the pick'em, that feels like a trap, that line set to where, I think Buffalo could lose this game. Do you like seeing a team give up 44 points? Absolutely not. But I don't think any of the teams in the AFC have an offense the way that the Rams just presented that offense to them in this yesterday. So, no, I'm not concerned. I still think the Bills are the best team in the AFC.
I want to see what that looks like against the Lions. They've got the Lions this week. That was a huge loss for them. Yeah. Because if they win that game, they're in the driver's seat to get the number 1 seed in the AFC potentially. Because the Chiefs have a really difficult finish to the season. They've got 3 games coming up in a 10-day stretch prior to Christmas Day. Man, losing that one and then next week going on the road at Detroit, that is a really tough spot for them. They have to win out, and they need some help with the Chiefs now. It's not a huge red flag to me. I do think that you're starting to see some signs, though. Hey, Baltimore on the road, 35-10 loss. Kansas City, the defense didn't look great over the course of that one. This one against LA, give up 44. Next week, what's it going to look like against Detroit? If they once again struggle to get stops, I will have some hesitation about that defense, much more so than I do their offense, because Josh Allen has proven time and time again that dude's a stud.
Yeah, I think there's some concern. I'm with you. We'll see about the Lions game. But the thing is the Rams, though, their offense is now finally clicking. And then you've got the Lions, so I agree, is probably the best offense in the NFL. I don't know if there's an offense in the AFC that I look at and say, yeah, they could really put up significant points. Outside of Baltimore, I think Baltimore can do it. But I don't think Baltimore can stop Buffalo either.
Yeah.
It's the Chargers aren't doing that.
This is going to sound crazy. I do think that the Chiefs could potentially do that in the postseason. And let's get to them. Yesterday was not the day that you look at and say to yourself, the Chiefs are going to beat that offense.
Yesterday?
I saw this stat earlier today. I found it to be fascinating. Did you guys know that Patrick Mahomes has more first half passing yards than any quarterback in the NFL? The reason why I bring this up is because I do think sometimes we're reading a little too much into some of this stuff. I think this offense is so much better than it was last year. So much better. My biggest question with the Chiefs, strange coming off of 2 games in which they've allowed 17 points, but my biggest question with them is the defense. I'm not sure they have the same ability to get stops that they did a year ago. And if the offense is simply top 10 good and the defense is 15th best in the NFL, I don't know if that's the formula that's good enough in today's game to be able to win the Super Bowl. But with Mahomes, with Andy Reid, with them coming together the way that we know that they will down the stretch, it's possible. What did you take away from their 1917 walk-off victory once again last night? Over their last 5 games, or last 5 weeks, excuse me, they have had one team set up with a game-winning kick potentially in all of them.
And haven't they used 3 different kickers?
Yeah.
It's freaking insane.
They're the first team in NFL history to have multiple kickers kick a game winner, and they've had 3 of them.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm bragging about that one. I don't know, man. Again, it's another close game. This one I would have expected to be a close game because the Chargers are a tough defensive team, and they're a playoff caliber squad also. The Raiders was the harder one for me to sit there and explain, or even the Panthers game where I know you put up 30, but it was still close. I still don't have any questions about this Chiefs team because until I see them struggle like this in the playoffs, that's when I'll start doubting. Your concern is the defense. Man, I don't know if I doubt Spagnuolo in the playoff game. Do you have the personnel to do it?
Point.
Absolutely not. But Spags always finds a way to get the best out of his team for 4 or 5 games. So Their offense is probably the most concerning thing to me, but Isaiah Pacheco has been hurt. He's still ramping things up. Travis Kelce, they're working a little load management for this guy. Like, until I see this team do a 19-17 win in a playoff game, that's when I'll start ringing the alarm bells.
Hey, man, and if you win in the playoffs, you win in the playoffs. That's the other thing about this. Okay, yeah, they're winning one-score games. Guess what playoff games are?
Yeah.
They're one score.
And you're winning.
Yeah, and 100%. They're winning. They're 12-1, man.
Yeah.
Like, eventually we have to value winning. That has to matter. And yesterday, you heard it with Chris Collinsworth on the broadcast. There was like 3.5 minutes to go. He's like, man, this clock's going to start to become a little bit of a factor here. And it absolutely did. The Chiefs are really good in those situations. It's like, okay, this is exactly what we need to do in order to win this game. Let's go do it. They find a way to get it done.
You know what they've done in these last 2 games? Yes, they've won only by a field goal, but you know what they also did? Drove down the field to put them in a field goal position and kick it.
The Raiders game was different, but whatever. That was a weird game from start to finish. All right, last thing here, last question for you guys. We'll get out of here on this for questions and answers. What other game, because it was not a very good day of pro football yesterday. There was like 2 or 3 good games overall. What other game did you learn something out of, Alex? Whether it was good, bad, what other game taught you something about a team that you thought was meaningful?
Probably the Vikings game, because I have doubted this Minnesota Vikings team, especially these last few weeks, looking at Sam Darnold and thinking like, man, I don't know if this team's good. And in that game in the first half, I'm thinking, I don't think this Minnesota Vikings team is going to be able to do anything. If I learned anything, it's that Sam Darnold might be able to pull off some type of upset in the postseason.
I went the other way with that game. I learned that the Falcons are done.
Oh, I knew the Falcons were done. They've been a joke since they got shellacked by the Denver Broncos.
They came into the day as the favorite to win the NFC, though. Or NFC South, excuse me.
I was like, wow.
That makes more sense.
Because they had the tiebreaker over the Bucs. Bucs had lost to them 2 times this year. My biggest takeaway from that game is that they're done. I don't know that I learned a whole lot about the Vikings. Darnold was great, don't get me wrong. The number of blown coverages in that game were just absurd.
Yeah.
And I don't expect that to happen whenever they go up against the best teams in the postseason. I think we're spot on with the Vikings. Vikings are a good team with an interesting defense and a quarterback that has moments where he looks amazing and other moments where he's going to implode. I think that's good enough to be a fringe contender. I think the Vikings are what they've been in recent seasons.
Yeah, the one game I looked at and I said, okay, I feel like we learned something, and I'm going to the NFC West again.
Love it.
I think it's the Seahawks and the Rams are the 2 teams that are fighting for the division. I mean, and the Cardinals, they were a fun story. They're an okay team. They're still a year or 2 away, and Kyler again was okay in that game. He was fine, but they're not there yet as a roster. And I thought like 2-3 weeks ago, it was, okay, the Cardinals look like the team prior to that loss. I think it was 2 weeks ago where they lost to Seattle in Seattle. I said, okay, that's the team right there. That is, Arizona wins this game. They're in the driver's seat, and they've since lost 3 in a row, lost a tough one against Minnesota last week. Arizona's close, but they're just not there yet.
I had one other that'll throw in here because we talked about the same game, Alex. The Eagles passing game is a disaster right now. And I don't know if it's going to be good enough to be able to get them far in the postseason. Jalen Hurts, the last time that he has thrown for more than 250 yards was October 13th. Since then, he has thrown for 115, 230, 230, 202, 220, 170, 118, and this week he threw for 108 yards. After the game against the Carolina Panthers, again, at home, A.J. Brown was asked, hey, what's going on with your offense? What do you guys need to improve on? And A.J. Brown said one word, passing. That tells you everything you need to know. We're seeing the same issues this year that we saw last year. It wasn't the coordinator. It is a different guy now. The running game is amazing. Their defense is pretty damn good. The Eagles have the passing game problem, and I'm not sure it's going to be fixed. They're a good team. I don't think I would take the Packers and the Lions over the Eagles right now. That's where I'm at on them, personally. All right, coming up in 15 minutes, what kind of activity can we expect the Cardinals to be involved with going into the winter meetings today? We know that they're going to be talking about Nolan Arenado. What else can we anticipate? We'll talk about that in 15 minutes. Questions and answers coming up next. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. Coming up in about 10 minutes, we'll talk about what the Cardinals are going to be involved with at the winter meetings. This one comes from the 314. Alex, I'm curious your thoughts on this. There's rumors that Brady Tkachuk is really trying to get out of Ottawa.
Jesus.
What do you make of it, Alex?
They're not real. It's one guy who has a history of just throwing things at the wall and seeing if it sticks that covers the New York Rangers that said, oh, the Rangers are interested in Brady Tkachuk. Yeah, so is every other damn team in the National Hockey League not named the Florida Panthers. Nothing to it. Friedman even said it earlier today. And then now their owner's coming out complaining about tampering. And it's like, this isn't tampering. It's teams that are saying, oh, we'd love to have that player on our team. Nobody's calling Brady Tkachuk and saying, you want to come to the Rangers? There's nothing here. Wait till the offseason. They're not going to trade Brady Tkachuk in the middle of a season.
All right, cool. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, Mizzou seems to have more and more local kids coming home out of the portal. Do you see this continuing to be a trend in all of college sports, especially with NIL? I was actually talking to somebody earlier today, Alex, about this, and I think there's a case to be made that there's nothing more valuable in college sports right now than having a kid that wants to be close to home. And I was thinking specifically about Lenore Sellers, who's the quarterback at South Carolina. Can you imagine the amount of money that he could get if he entered himself into the portal this offseason? Ohio State, Alabama, USC, Oklahoma, every blue blood in the country that currently needs a quarterback would be after his services. But he's from South Carolina. And so he has a relationship with all of these guys, of course, but he has something drawing him to the school more than just, I play here. So I think that, to me, is the most important thing you can have right now. And it's always kind of been that way to a degree. But with the portal plus NIL and these guys effectively being on one-year contracts every season, it becomes that much more important. So, yes, I do think guys coming home is going to be a trend in college sports. It always has been to a degree, but more so now than ever, because these kids go elsewhere. Of course, we've all seen that, right? Like, want to go to college somewhere else, want to go get a job somewhere else. And a lot of the times there's something that's pulling you back towards home. And I think you're going to see a lot of that as we continue along here, especially as guys go elsewhere, don't get the playing time they feel like they deserve, and then say, you know what, screw this. I'm going to go back home, be closer to home, have a better chance to be able to start. You'll see a lot of that.
Yeah, you want to know how to make more money? You go back closer to home. But I think there's just always going to be that type of passion, like you said, in terms of it doesn't work out the first year. You don't get to be the guy you thought you were when you were recruited. And what would you rather do? Go be the guy back for your hometown team. So I think it's going to be a massive trend that'll continue to grow.
From the 314, do you guys think that we're closer to seeing Brandon Saad as a healthy scratch? I think we'll probably see it eventually. I feel like Saad, Joseph, Bolduc, those three, somebody has to be a healthy scratch eventually.
I don't know if Bolduc's going to be a healthy scratch again the rest of the season. That might be a bold take, but he's playing the hockey that Jim Montgomery wants. Right now, I would say Brandon Saad could be a consideration for a healthy scratch. I mean, they had to move Holloway off of the line that had been so successful against Edmonton because they needed to get Saad going.
I found that to be fascinating. Did you hear the explanation after it?
They wanted to get Saad going.
Well, but beyond that, they thought Saad didn't bring the speed that they needed on that line.
Yeah.
They felt like they were too slow going up against the Edmonton Oilers, so they needed somebody that could really get going offensively. And they said Holloway is the guy that unlocked that for them on the third line. So it was more about Holloway dropping down with Sonny than it was about Saad like being good with Braden Shen. I found that to be fascinating.
And it's wild too because Brandon Saad, I think, has some underrated speed. We've seen him create breakaways just off of his skating alone on the penalty kill 5-on-5. He's got 4 goals this season, and they've all been scored in 2 games. He's got 2 and then 2, and then there's been nothing else. And I personally think Matthew Joseph deserves to stay in the lineup. It's just you keep the Brandon Saad in there because of the history there. I would be really interested to see what the lines look like in about an hour or so with Jim Montgomery if Matthew Joseph gets in that Saad spot.
Yeah, I think you're getting close to a Saad scratch because I agree. I don't think Joseph's done anything to get himself out of the lineup. Bolduc's not playing like a guy that belongs in the press box. So at some point, you know, there is hey, he's the veteran. He's been here. We got to give him a chance to get going. At some point, you run out of chances. And if you don't really turn the corner here, and I don't know if it'll be this game. I don't know if it's 2-3 games down the road. his leeway is definitely running out before he starts to start watching games up in the press box.
He's T-Bone. That's Alex on BK. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll play a game of in or out. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show for that. Hey, join the Morning After crew in the all-new Hot Shots on Lindbergh for TMA's Christmas party. It's coming up on Thursday, December the 12th. It's from 7 to 9 o'clock at night. It features Santa Dog giving out presents every 10 minutes, like Blues tickets, a signed Blues puck, concert tickets including Post Malone and Jelly Roll, Kendrick Lamar and SZA, Jack White, Disturbed, Linkin Park, and more. Hot Shots will also have TMA holiday-themed menus with shots and drink specials throughout the night. Also, please bring a new and unwrapped toy for Annie's Hope. Come celebrate the holidays with TMA at the brand new Hot Shots on Lindbergh on December the 12th. It starts at 7 o'clock that evening. TMA at Hot Shots on Lindbergh. Coming up next, what kind of activity can we reasonably expect the Cardinals to be involved with at this week's winter meetings? We'll talk about it here on 101 ESPN. All right, so we know the Cardinals aren't likely to be bidders on, Corbin Bird, Max Fried, or Jack Flaherty.
Oh, come on.
That one makes the most sense.
I don't think they're going to have much in terms of their free agency involvement at this year's winter meetings. However, they are going to be involved in some stuff, and a lot of that revolves around the trade negotiations. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, yesterday John Mozeliak went on KMOX for his weekly hit on the Sunday show that he does, and he updated what his approach is going to be at this year's winter meetings. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, I would definitely say over the last week and a half, the volume of calls has definitely gone up. So from that standpoint, just trying to remain open-minded and, understand really what these markets look like. And, ultimately my team will try to assess what we think is best for today and also the future and see if we can't make some decisions. But I do think there'll be some activity this week. It just feels like things are starting to loosen up overall in the baseball market. So I do think if you're one of those people that like to follow action, there should be some this week.
I think a lot of that has to do with Juan Soto. That was yesterday morning prior to the news that Juan Soto was going to be signing with the New York Mets. I think so much of the market was just gummed up by the biggest teams in baseball, the ones that you expect to be most active this offseason, were in on the Soto sweepstakes. The Red Sox were in, the Blue Jays were in, the Mets were in, the Dodgers were in, the Yankees were in. Those were the 5 teams that were reportedly most involved with his negotiations. All of them are also, for the most part, potentially options for the Cardinals when it comes to Nolan Arenado. The next thing you need, Willy Adames as well, helped as one of the dominoes to fall. Next thing you need is Alex Bregman to sign somewhere. Mm-hmm. Once he does, okay, now the best third baseman on the market is done. The shortstop that could have moved to third baseman is going to be moved. The next guy up probably is Nolan Arenado. So what do I expect to happen this week for the Cardinals? I think it's a Nolan Arenado trade in some capacity. It might not take place officially this week, but I think you're going to get some buzz over the next few days. Hey, Nolan Arenado is most likely to end up with these 3 teams. These are the teams that are most involved in the negotiations. There was a really good piece, Alex, earlier today from Derek Gould that kind of built on this, and I want to get your thoughts on it. Quote, the Cardinals have approached a select handful of teams to gauge interest in Arenado. A few of those teams the Cardinals approached, like the Yankees and at least one more, were also involved in the Soto sweepstakes. The Cardinals expect their discussions about Arenado to increase in the coming days, and if they find a suitable deal, they will present it to the all-star third baseman. Later on in that piece, Mo was quoted as saying, the return here is about the future. I'm not looking to swap for something that is plug and play today. I feel like our current roster, there's not a screaming need for that anyway, end quote. That should be music to T-Bone's ears, because I think he's been saying something similar where it's about, hey, get the prospects. Mm-hmm. Get prospects in return.
So no Alec Bohm is essentially what I heard there.
Bingo.
You're not trying that.
Alex, what are you anticipating as activity for the Cardinals over the next few days?
I think it's what you just mentioned. The conversations ramp up to the point that you're going to exit these meetings with an idea of like X, Y, and Z teams are interested in Nolan Arenado. They're waiting for a couple of other chips to fall off of their to-do list, and then we'll circle back with this one. I also think, and it seems like they've put it out there, that the Ryan Helsley stuff is pretty much dead unless something gets too overwhelming for them. You might see something in that front. And then on the pitching side of things, I'd expect some type of conversations to pick up at the end of the winter meetings of, hey, a couple of teams calling around about Steven Matz, about Sonny Gray, some Eric Fetty, something like that. This is always that week where conversations pick up, but that Juan Soto deal getting done before the real heat of the winter meetings take up, that's the part that I think you're going to walk out from these with, is you're going to have a lot of smoke surrounding a couple of Cardinals players to potentially fire by the end of the week.
Yeah, I think you're really going to see a lot of reporting on Matz being the guy that has some buzz picked up at the winter meetings. I mean, Matthew Boyd just got $12 million to be a pitcher. All right, well, Matz is making 11, so he's right in that range. So maybe teams look at the free agent market and say, okay, well, we don't want to give that guy $13 million, but we'll take Matz, and if the Cardinals eat $1 million or $2 million and we'll give a little bit better of a prospect in return, okay, now we'll make that deal happen.
It's a one-year deal
exactly.
At this point.
It's a rental, so it makes more sense than giving out a 2 or 3 year deal to somebody else. I think what you're really going to see is it is going to be around Arenado, and maybe it's not the smoke. Maybe you won't hear the buzz around his name specifically early on because it will be centered around Bregman, right? It will be, okay, now you got these teams that are linked to Alex Bregman. Well, then you might as well just associate those teams with Arenado because now there is no, to your point, there is no plan B of Willy Adames. Willy Adames said, I'm not waiting around. I'm going to San Francisco where my money's at. I think if Arenado's not connected to the rumors, which I'd almost be shocked if he's not at the winter meetings, then just look at the Bregman news because there is going to be Bregman news because Boris is going to be out there. I think that's who he's represented by. Correct. Boris is going to be out there. You know he's probably going to do one of his cool little press conferences where he likes to tie everybody to cool little memes or have nice little alliterations. But I think if Bregman suitors get connected and it is like Phillies, it is Yankees, it is Red Sox, you might as well just, if it's not reported, just go ahead and connect the dots and say that Arenado's with those teams.
Third baseman options for teams that are on the free agent market not named Alex Bregman this offseason are Paul DeJong and Yoan Moncada. Those guys have both been on the White Sox. So it's a pretty light market out there. And if you're a team that needs a third baseman, it's Alec Boehm, it's Nolan Arenado, and it's Alex Bregman. Those are your three options right now.
Which one's higher up, Boehm or Arenado?
I think they're just totally different.
Yeah.
Because,
Boehm seemingly would be an easier trade for another team.
100%. Because he's cheaper, he's younger, he's controlled for the next couple of seasons. Like, if I'm the Kansas City Royals, for example, or if I'm the Cleveland Guardians, the Detroit Tigers, I'm going that market.
Yeah.
Because it's easier for me. I'm not paying $30 million. But if I'm the Yankees or the Phillies or the Astros, a team that is in contention right now and needs certainty from that spot, and I've got stars that can make up for the lack of offense that I'm potentially not going to get out of Nolan Arenado, well, now I'm asking the Cardinals to eat some of that contract to give anything of value in return. But I'm interested in Nolan Arenado more so than I am in Alec Boehm. So I think it's almost two different markets, kind of, but I do think those are the guys right now that are potential options for teams at third base.
Well, and I think the difficult part with this one, too, is I forgot who had it. You sent the text over the weekend to where there's a very limited list that the Cardinals are working from with Nolan Arenado. So it's not like you have an open field to have these conversations. I would imagine Mo and company already have an idea of the teams that Arenado is interested in.
Definitely.
And those are the teams you're negotiating with. So you're not waiting for chips to fall for 15, 20, 25 teams. You're waiting them to fall for 2 or 3 teams that Arenado's interested in.
All right, I wanted to ask you guys one other question. I was listening to the best podcast in baseball with Derek Gould over the weekend, and he asked a question that I wanted to get your thoughts on.
Is there a free agent player who will help them accelerate this reset, help them come out of this reset, or just help them get by that appeals to you?
He asked that of Kevin Wheeler, guy that I used to work with on the Kevin Wheeler Show here on 101 ESPN. And Wheels basically said, hey, listen, if they could go out there and get a pitcher that previously was a reliever and now he's going to potentially be a starter, Jeff Hoffman was the name that he came up with. But theoretically speaking, just a guy that was a reliever, you could make him into a starter, similar to what the Royals did this past season with Seth Lugo. That's the direction that he would go. I get it. It's an intriguing direction to go. Alex, do you have any free agents out there that if the Cardinals decided, you know what, we think we're a little better than common belief is right now, and we think our division's pretty terrible, we're going to keep Helsley, we're going to trade Arenado and just move off from all of these older veterans, but we still think this core could be pretty decent next year, and we want to supplement it to potentially accelerate this retool? What would you be looking to do this offseason if that was your stated goal?
And it's the free agent market we're talking about?
If you want to go trade, go for it. But
I don't have a name on the trade. It's just I think the creativity on the trade market is where you could really accelerate some things. But let's just go off the free agent market.
If you don't have a name, then let's go with free agents.
Walker Buehler would be mine. And I think it would be costly, and I think it's probably more expensive than what they want. But to me, that's an upside number 1 at best number 2 who's trying a prove it. After what took place last year, you win the World Series, you get to go be a starting pitcher elsewhere. That's something that the Cardinals go out there and acquire, put him into your rotation, and it can accelerate because it gives you the possibility of having a top-ledge pitcher. And if it doesn't work out or if you feel like it's best served, then you could flip him at the deadline.
I mean, I brought my guy up last week. I still think it's Jack Flaherty. He's still one of the youngest arms on the market, right? And if I'm going to go out and do a free agent signing, 32, 33 years old, that's fine. If you're in the 30, 31 range, is kind of where Buehler is. okay, that's fine. But I want someone that is young, that's got stuff that I've seen do this before, right? That's going to be a part of the top of the rotation both for this year and is going to be on a pretty team-friendly deal, which Flaherty would be at only potentially 4 or 5 years, which is a little surprising for how young he is. And I ran off of what his numbers are. I mean, he's the only pitcher that has 3 times had 25-plus starts, sub-3.4 ERA, and 10 strikeouts per 9 in a full season. So, like, he's got the stuff. I just think it was injuries that were there. If you wanted to look at, like, kind of rebound candidates that you get on like a 1 or 2 year deal. Like I like Griffin Canning, who got non-tendered by the Angels. Patrick Sandoval, who's coming off of an injury. He's had stuff in the past as a lefty, but I even that, like as a retooling team, I don't know if I want to do just a 1 or 2 year deal. I'm looking for something that is a 4 to 5 year commitment that is, hey, this will help us both in the now, and we believe we're going to be a good team in 2 or 3 years and push again. Well, now I've already got this guy on my roster, and that's why, to me, I said it last week, I do believe Jack Flaherty is that guy.
I would go Spencer Turnbull. He's 32, so he's up there in age. This is not something where you're like, hey, we're going to build around Spencer Turnbull. This is going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. But he had a really good season last year in Philadelphia prior to going down with the injury. Started half of the season, was a bullpen arm for them half of the season. That was also a loaded rotation, and they were trying to watch his innings. It's something that the Cardinals would have to be cognizant of as well, especially considering he got hurt in June. But if you wanted to try something next year and you wanted to get a little, he could be the kind of guy that comes out of the bullpen for half the season, starts for half the season. Maybe he starts out of the rotation, and then you have him as like the transition plan into Quinn Matthews when Quinn Matthews comes up in like June, let's call it. I could see that being a pretty compelling idea. I don't know what he's going to get. I would bet 2 years. Maybe a 1 year, like $10 million deal, kind of something like that. I'm interested in that. That would be the kind of deal that I would do. I don't think I'm looking at any of the top 50-ish free agents or so this year. And it's a weird place to be as a Cardinals fan, but I think that's where they're at. I think Alex is right. If they're going to do anything of real value, I think it's probably coming via the trade market, much more so than it is the free agent.
And I think you could get real creative with it and go out and find a piece that helps your team now, but is also young enough to be a part of the future plans. You're going to have to give up something that's a part of your future plans as well, though. All
right, before we get to in or out on the other side, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Mo did have one quote in this story from Derek Gould that I wanted to read because I do think I think it illustrates where they're at as an organization. And it gets back to what we talked about in the Open today when it comes to Juan Soto and what he means for the Cardinals' long-term build. He said, quote, I feel like we need 1, 2 of these young players to emerge to be more than just good. They have to be special. Is that going to be Mason Wynn? Is it Jordan Walker? Is it Nolan Gorman? If that happens, this franchise will not be far off from being where it needs to be, end quote. I think he is 100% correct. Now, the hard part is, do you believe these guys are capable of that? And I totally understand if your answer to that is no. I get it. But Mo's right. This team, if you look at some of the supplementary pieces, hell, guys, look at the players that the Cardinals previously had that are now getting paid on the free agent market or getting paid to stay where they're at. Tommy Edman just got, what, $60 million?
75, wasn't it?
From the Dodgers?
75.
We just saw $50 million go towards Tyler O'Neill. And those guys are like solid supplementary pieces. And they're getting $15+ million to play for contenders next year. The Orioles decided Tyler O'Neill's worth $16 million a year for us. Now, it might be a mistake, but a contender that I think is pretty smart just decided to do that. The Dodgers decided a $15 million a year for Tommy Edman is good money to spend for us. I think Nootbaar's going to be in that ilk eventually. I think Donovan's going to eventually get $15+ million per year. I think some of the guys that Cardinals fans are like, they're average. These guys are worth real money on the open market, and you have them as cost-controlled pieces right now. That's why you need these guys to be stars. The thing that makes everything else fall into place is having young position players develop to become stars. I don't know that they're going to hit on them. I don't know that these are the players to be able to do it with. But if they do, if it comes together next year, suddenly you're going to be talking about the Cardinals being a contender way before any of us anticipated it. So I think Mo's right. It's just hard to be able to see, is this actually going to happen for the Cardinals with these players?
Yeah, and I think in terms of the quote-unquote special, I think they already know Mason Wynn is one. Is he like superstar special? That you don't know, but at least the qualities that he provides, clutch hitting, defense, I think he's special. It's going to come down to, do you have Walker or Gorman? Are one of those guys special in the eyes of the Cardinals?
I think you're right. I think those are the two guys with them. I think it's really Walker.
Yeah. That's why I think they're banking on.
I think Gorman has the potential to be a special power hitter. I'm not sure he has the potential to be a special player. I think Walker has the potential to be a special player. And maybe it's a fine line that I'm going with there, but I do believe there's a little bit of a difference between the two. All right, coming up next, time for In or Out here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my insurance agent, my friend Tracy Bibb, who is taking care of the Ferrario family with our car and home insurance. You hear me talk all the time. You hear me talk with Tracy all the time about protecting against others. And when you're out with your car, once we get into that colder season, when the ice is out, the snow is out, sure, you want to make sure you're insured, but you also want to make sure that you're protected against people who aren't insured. Those fender benders can be problematic if you get into somebody that doesn't have car insurance. That's why you have to have the proper protection with Tracy Bibb. They preach all the time. It's not a matter of if something happens, it's when something happens. And when it does, you want to have an agent that you can call, that's available, that is there to help you immediately. So give Tracy a call today. Tell her you heard me talk about it on 101 ESPN, and she'll take it from there. 314-328-4260. It's a free non-committal quote. Super simple. She'll even cancel your insurance if you opt to go with the Bibb agency. 314-328-4260. It's no fib. You're always in great hands with the Bibb.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are in or out here on BK and Ferrario. Let's start out with this one, boys. In or out? They got it right with the college football playoff and the teams that they put in with these 12 teams ending up in it, Alex. So basically, they got it right going with SMU over Bama and Miami, because that was a real question.
And I thought I was going to argue this if SMU lost to where Alabama should be in. Boy, after watching that SMU-Clemson game, SMU deserves to be in that. As good of a resume as Alabama has, should have won. Should have won one of those losses. Whereas SMU, I know the resume's not as great, but damn, you played competitive football in that college football playoff game. So, in.
I think I'll say...
Do it. Fire.
I'll say out. I think Bama should have gotten it over SMU.
Really?
I think a 3-loss SEC team is better than a 2-loss
Trash
ACC
take,
team.
bro.
Unbelievable.
And I think Clemson, for winning the conference championship, is like losing a game to South Carolina. You know, I think they're in the same ilk as South Carolina. South Carolina didn't make the playoff. And SMU just lost to them. They don't have a big win on their schedule.
Win.
I would say SMU should have been out.
Quit whining.
Stop.
You should have won.
I don't care either way.
Stop losing to Oklahoma and Vanderbilt. If you don't lose those games, you're in. Enough, Alabama. And I'm not saying this to you, T-Bone. You just have.
You're really looking at me the way
I am. Enough.
I'm just so sick of hearing it from Bama people where they're like, but look at the schedule. How could you? Yeah, your losses. One of them is a good one. Tennessee's a good team. Totally acceptable. You lost to Vandy and you lost to Oklahoma, a terrible Oklahoma team.
Oklahoma's bad.
I don't want to hear it. I would also add this. We've heard a lot about the schedule game, right? And how, man, but look, they didn't beat anybody. Oh, okay. Can we look at Texas's schedule for a moment and talk about who they beat this year? Because they have 0 ranked wins on the season. 0. Exactly 0.
Yeah, they had kind of the SMU flavor of schedule.
Yeah. Hey, how about Penn State? Man, what a great team. I actually think they're a really good team, and I thought we learned a lot about them in that game against Oregon. I didn't think they had that kind of offensive performance in them. So I was super impressed with them over the weekend. Who's their best win this season?
ILL.
Probably, right?
I think I'm right. I mean, I think it's the only ranked win on their schedule.
How about Notre Dame? You really like that Notre Dame resume? Really impressed by their one?
They beat 2 option teams.
Yeah.
Or 3 of them.
Like, we pick and choose where this matters. There are very few potential ranked wins when you're not playing against an SEC schedule. It's just the reality this year. And when you have these massive conferences, it gets even harder to put together schedules that are balanced. Like Texas is going to have one style of schedule, and Bama's going to have another, and it's going to change year over year depending on who's good in the conference that year. So I thought they got it right. I think you have to reward teams that win. They won 11 games this year. They should have been in. Alex, what do you got?
Guys, in or out, Dylan Holloway has the potential to be a top-line winger for the Blues.
I'm going to ask a qualifier.
That's
no
not
qualifiers.
what we do on this game.
We're not taking questions.
Because I think, like, when I think top-line winger, like Matthew Tkachuk is not technically on the top line for the Panthers, but he's a top-line caliber winger. Mm-hmm. If you're asking me, can he play on the top line and be a piece of that top line? My answer to that is yes, I'm in. If you're asking me, do I think he will be viewed nationally as a top line caliber winger?
No, I'm not asking that.
Okay, then yeah. I would say I'm in. I think he can be a guy that is on your top line for a contender.
So here's why I asked it. You guys think Seth Jarvis of the Carolina Hurricanes is a top line winger?
He's had a great season.
Yeah. 33 goals last year. That was his 3rd full season in the NHL, and he's 22 years old. He was drafted 1 spot ahead of Dylan Holloway. I watched Seth Jarvis's game, and I watched Dylan Holloway's game and say, why can't he do that? If you look at NHL Edge, which is those super analytics, which we all know we love, Dylan Holloway has like 45% better. Dylan Holloway has considered an elite shot in the National Hockey League.
Correct.
And he's got a net front presence like Seth Jarvis plays with. Seth Jarvis plays with one of the best centermen in the game in Sebastian Aho. I bring this up because I think Seth Jarvis is what Dylan Holloway could be. A body that's fast, that's got a hell of a shot.
Do you know something?
Do I know something? What do you mean? I can't predict the future, BK.
Are the Blues on the ice right now, and they've got him on the top line or something?
Well, they are on the ice right now, but I don't know if he's on the top line or not. I'm going to go in
because I think this is a BKS game.
I'm glad you say BKS game. I thought you said BS game, and I'm like, hey, you watch your tone with me. Honestly, though, I have no idea if he's going to be playing up there. This is going to be a weird flex right here for well, actually, no, just a good flex. When I talked with Elliotte Friedman over the weekend.
No, that was
You'll hear some of that coming up at the 1 o'clock hour. Good get by Alex.
He brought up Jordan Kyrou, and he talked about how, how is he viewed nationally? He's just not a guy you put out there to try and win a hockey game. I think Dylan Holloway is a guy that is put out on the ice to win a hockey game.
I agree.
I would say in on this because I do think he can be a guy that could play on your top line. He'll never be viewed as a top line guy, but I think he can be on that, and he can really change the way a game can be played because of his speed on the outside on the wing. Guys, in or out? I don't know if you saw, but Bill Belichick was on the Pat McAfee show today. And the reason I am going to that is because he's been kind of connected to a big job at North Carolina. And he said today, he was asked about it, quote, seems like college football is more like pro football, and says he's talked to plenty of coaches to discuss the value, the portal, and the new college world. Guys, in or out? Bill Belichick is the next head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels.
I was going to say out for a really long time. And then over the week, because I thought Tulane's coach was getting that job. It seemed like he was the leading candidate, and he decided he's going to re-up with Tulane, which there's an interesting conversation to be had about coaches deciding, you know what, it's not actually all that beneficial to me to go to North Carolina, a mid-tier ACC conference or team. It's better for me to be at a team in the group of 5 that's committed to winning, and I could potentially get to the playoff from here. It's easier now to make it to the college football playoff potentially at Tulane than North Carolina, which is an interesting conversation to be had about college football. But man, I think I'm still out. I don't think he ends up taking it. I think this is a publicity play for Belichick. I think he's trying to leverage somebody into giving him the job at the NFL level. Do you guys think there's a job for him, though? I don't know where it is.
At the NFL or college level?
NFL, because
No.
if there's not, then he needs to take this job if he wants to coach again.
I think this season tells you that there's not an opportunity for you at the NFL level. I mean, we've seen a couple of coaches get fired already, and nobody's even talking about Bill Belichick. And
who would hire him?
That's the thing. Like, some of the
Jacksonville. Yeah, that's the one for me.
I don't know if Bill Belichick takes the Jacksonville job.
He's got a quarterback.
Eventually you got to take something.
Yeah.
Is North Carolina a better job than Jacksonville?
More secure if you're Bill Belichick, I would imagine.
Man, who cares about security? You're like 100 years old. You're trying to win as quickly as possible, and you want to like add another piece of. I mean, he's probably got like 3 years left of coaching in him, 3 to 5 years tops.
Oh, Mac Brown's coaching like his 80s.
Yeah, well, that didn't work out so well either. If he wants to go somewhere, I think Jacksonville's probably the spot.
Reunited with Mac Jones. I don't think that'll happen.
I'm going to say, I think he takes the Carolina job. Because I don't know if there is an NFL job.
The North Carolina?
Yeah.
Or not the Carolina Panthers?
No, not Carolina. They shouldn't fire their coach. They've been playing good football late. I think he will take the North Carolina job.
Wow.
And I am fascinated to know if it works. Because what he said is what I said on Friday. We talked a little bit about this, and I said, hey, college football is a lot like the NFL now, right? You're going to have a GM. You're going to have some not contracts, but you're going to have kind of a little salary cap that you deal with. And then NIL is more of kind of like what pro athletes do now, which is, hey, we can go out and get our own advertising deals while we've got a contract kind of with our school. I think if there was ever a time for Bill Belichick to coach college football and it potentially work, it is in the current landscape of college football. I think he takes it, and I think he's going to try and prove people wrong.
I think roster building wise, you're correct. I think the coaching aspect of it, he's a great teacher, but does his messaging, does his style of coaching work in college football in 2024? I don't know, man. If you're North Carolina, I guess it's worth it to find out, but it would be a really bold hire. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get to a few of these from the text line for in or out. Guys, in or out, the Blues will extend Roddick Foxa due to his familiarity and trust with Montgomery.
I'd say in. Get him cheaper than $3-point-something million. Depending on how you feel about your minor league system in terms of like guys you can trust in your bottom 6, Roddick Fox is probably going to be the best out of all of them. And I think Sonny's got one more year, if I'm not mistaken, after this year at $1 million. Sonny might be a extra forward for you by next season, and Fox is your 4th line center. So in.
I'll say out. I don't know if they'll extend Fox. I think they'll just look at Sonny as the guy that can kind of take that spot, and hopefully you have somebody else that can take that 3rd line center role.
I'll say in, just because they want the depth. There's no real downside to it. If he asks for $1 million or $2 million, that's totally fine. So I'll say in. In or out, guys, one of the teams in the college football playoff final will be from a conference other than the SEC or the Big Ten.
Out.
You think we'll get a SEC Big Ten final?
I think it'll be Oregon, Texas.
I had to look at the bracket.
Georgia's screwed now with this UCL injury.
Oregon, Texas is impossible because of the bracket.
Oh, they're in the same bracket?
Remember, it's the bracket
Oh,
style.
yeah, shoot.
So it would be like from the bottom half of the bracket, your Big Ten/SEC options are Indiana, Penn State, and Georgia. On the top of the bracket, it's basically exclusively Big Ten and SEC. Texas, Tennessee, Ohio State, Oregon, all in the top half.
Yeah, I'm out. I don't remember what the question was. I think you're going to see SEC and Big Ten in it because of the way the bracket kind of plays out. Originally, I was going to say it's, hey, 2 Big Ten teams going into the playoff release. I thought we were going to see 2 Big Ten teams meet up. The way the bracket shaped out, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think you're going to get SEC versus Big Ten team.
Who's the SEC?
I think the SEC is going to end up, I can't believe I'm saying this, I think it's going to be Georgia. I don't know if I look at a team in
with their other quarterback?
I think we're getting a rematch of the Big Ten championship game in the national title.
That's what I was wondering. If you get Penn State versus Oregon.
I don't have enough faith in Penn State.
Dude, they looked good.
Penn State versus SMU. Who you got?
Penn State.
I'd go Penn State, but I think it'd be
Penn State
closer.
versus Boise. Who you got?
Penn State.
Yes, Penn State.
This is where it gets interesting. Now you've got one game.
I don't know.
It's a
I think it's
50-50
Georgia.
proposition.
I'm not sure Georgia. I mean, Georgia's, you got to imagine, gets past one of those
I
first
think Notre
opponents.
Dame might be Georgia.
I'm
I don't
kind
think
of
Georgia's
wondering.
that good, man.
Without
I know. I
don't
know
think
they
Notre
won.
Dame's that good.
I agree, but like I would not be surprised at all if Notre Dame ends up beating Georgia.
And dude, that
Not at
backup
all.
quarterback for Georgia looked like he had the yips when he was put into that game.
And I also think he's better than their starting quarterback in Carson Beck.
I thought he was really good. He made one really boneheaded mistake. Outside of that, I thought he was excellent.
All right, coming up next, let's stick on this conversation with the college football playoff. Did the committee put in the 12 teams that we needed to see? Alex and I agreed they got it right. T-Bone says no. What did we learn from this past weekend that will apply to the college football playoff, though? Let's push this thing forward a little bit. We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues back in action tomorrow night as they visit the Vancouver Canucks. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 8 o'clock with Alex Ferrario, then puck drop at 9 o'clock with the voice of the Blues, Chris Carber. And coming up tonight here on 101 ESPN, we've got Monday Night Football for you as the Cowboys take on the Bengals, and we'll have pregame coverage starting at 6:30. This Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. So the college football playoff is all set. We do have the bracket, the top 4 seeds. Number 1, Oregon. Number 2, Georgia. Number 3, Boise. Number 4, Arizona State. Those 4 teams are skipping the first round. They get the bye into the second round of the playoffs. So they're already into the quarterfinals because they won their respective conferences, and they were the highest 4-rated conference champions. Alex, that part, I think we all kind of agreed, like that was pretty much the way that this was going to be set up, with the Big 12 getting that final spot. It went according to plan for the most part. What was interesting was Clemson winning the ACC championship, which gave them a spot and then became a SMU versus Bama / Miami, mostly SMU versus Bama discussion. Alex, we're on the same page. We think they got it right. SMU deserved to get in after the close game that they played against Clemson and the resume that they had in the regular season. T-Mode would have gone with Alabama. It's a 50-50 proposition either way. Like, if you lean one side or the other, maybe you think it's 60-40, but it was a close call. What did we learn over the weekend for you guys that will influence how you feel about this year's college football playoff, the 12-team field that we now have? Did anything happen to change, if at all, Alex, your perspective on this year's playoff?
I mean, not really, mostly because, like, this is what the SEC and Big Ten did when they went super conferences. In terms of bringing all of these together, there's a lot of complaining right now that, strength of schedule should matter right now, and we're putting better records in.
I should clarify. I'm not talking about the field. I'm talking about now that we're here and we have the college football playoff that's set, expectations for how this thing goes.
Oh, the college football playoffs. Oh, okay. I thought you meant, my apologies.
No, I should have made it more clear. Like, for me, I'll give you an example. Watching that game between Oregon and Penn State, the gap between Oregon and the rest of the field is not as wide as I suspected that it was. I thought Oregon was far and away the best team in the college football playoff. I no longer feel that way. I think they're the best, but I think the gap between them and everybody else is not all that wide. I don't think the gap between anybody in this field is honestly all that wide.
Interesting, because I still believe Oregon is by far the best team.
Even after watching this weekend.
Yeah.
Why?
I mean, you couldn't stop them. You couldn't stop Oregon.
They also couldn't stop Penn State, who has not had a good offense this year.
It doesn't matter when Oregon can just continue to score. Like, if there's ever a sport where it is, if I don't have a defense, I feel fine, it would be college football. I saw Lincoln Riley make a living off that at Oklahoma. So I actually came away going, this is Oregon's title to lose.
See, that's crazy. We have very different perspectives.
I was actually more on T-Bone's side because I think they have the best quarterback in the college football playoffs. And when you have the best quarterback, you're going to be able to stay in every single game. And like watching all of these, I mean, Georgia would be the other one, and they didn't even have the best quarterback, but they're dealing with injuries now. Like, I look at, like, the Boise State, I look at Ohio State. I don't think Ohio State could get past Oregon because they don't have the better quarterback. So, like, I came away from that, and you're right. Like, I think Penn State, Oregon could be the college football championship game, but I think Oregon is still the best team in this college football bracket because they've got the best quarterback.
I think it's going to be really fun to watch Oregon against whoever comes out of that bottom half of the conference. And I think Oregon would, like, today, if I was placing a bet on somebody, I would take Oregon. I think they're the best team remaining. I would not take them at their odds. They're too short. I think there's enough value with what is out there right now with the college football playoff that I would probably, if I was placing a bet today, I would go with somebody else. Like today, it's Georgia, Texas, Oregon at plus 350. They're the favorites right now to win the playoff. I would probably go somebody that's a little longer. Like I would go with Notre Dame at 12-1, Penn State at 6.5-1, Tennessee at 25-1. I would take one of those teams over the value that is currently there with Oregon, personally.
Yeah, I mean, I would go to the right side of the bracket and take one of those teams because I think Notre Dame, Penn State, they're probably the toughest opponents on that side. And then you just get to the college football championship game. And when you do, I mean, you're talking about big odds in one game where you could potentially pull that one off.
See, I wouldn't put money on anybody outside of Oregon. I know the odds aren't good when you're looking at value, but I would rather win money than burn money. And I think there's nobody that's beaten Oregon. That's just how I came out of that Big Ten title game. I'll tell you one team that I did leave the title game feeling like, ooh, oh boy, they may not escape their first round game. Them Longhorns in Texas. No, would it shock you if Texas lost to Clemson? I think Texas will win that football game.
I don't think Clemson is very good.
Yeah,
I think Clemson's going to keep it close because I'm not sure how good Texas is.
Yeah,
I mean, you mentioned
fair.
their schedule.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned their schedule. They've kind of got that SMU flavor on their schedule where it's like, hey, we're in the SEC. Look, we got to the title game. And then I look and I go, yeah, you got the bad portion of the SEC.
Do you think either of those teams could beat Arizona State?
Yes.
Yeah, I think Arizona State's really not good.
Arizona State. I think that game between Arizona State and Iowa State, unbelievably entertaining, and I left saying neither of those teams had any chance to do anything in the college football
Because some other team's defense could be like, we just got to stop your running game.
I'm happy to have Arizona State involved. It's like, cool. It's great. Their running back's super fun to watch. But no, I don't think they have any chance to be able to actually do anything against Texas or Clemson. That being said, though, dude, it's been such a weird year.
Yeah.
This was the perfect season to have the 12-team playoff at the end of it. Because while I agree that Oregon is the best, weird stuff could happen in a situation like this. We all watch the NCAA tournament. Dude, this stuff starts going sideways, and then you get, midway through the game. Hold on. Is Boise up right now 24-7 against Georgia? How did that happen? Jeanty had 3 rushes of 50-plus yards, and suddenly Boise State's up big midway through the third quarter. That could happen. It shouldn't shock anybody if it does. I'll take Penn State over them. I'll take Penn State to get out of that bottom portion of the bracket. I'm going to take Oregon to come out of the top portion of the bracket. I don't have a whole lot of faith in it. I thought going into this weekend that those games were going to go a little differently than ultimately they did. I mean, it was every game basically was a one-score game for the most part. The games that really mattered. Penn State, Oregon, 1 score. Georgia, Texas went to overtime. Clemson, SMU went to the final kick. I think you're going to see a lot of that once we get into these playoffs. I don't think this year is going to be like it was in the old playoff where you got the top 4 and half of the time you ended up with a 42-7 game in one of those. I don't think that's going to happen this time around.
Yeah, I don't either. I think all these are going to be very close. And the funny thing is I look at this field and I don't where's the great game come from? I think it's probably not till you get to the next round. I think the chance to have a really great game could be Ohio State, Oregon, and unfortunately that's going to be in the second round of the playoff. The lack of the unwillingness to just reseed these teams when you get to the second round is still ridiculous to me because I think Ohio State is going to beat Tennessee. And if they get to the second round and they play Oregon, that will be the best single playoff game that we will have because I don't think that we've seen any other team. Penn State did give a decent fight to Oregon, but I think those are the 2 best teams in this playoff field, and they have the potential to meet in the second round. It's like watching the freaking NHL Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah, I do.
Hey, first round, let's just give you the best match.
I do agree with that.
Am I the only one that likes the way that they're doing this?
No, I kind of agree with T-Bone because I think you should be a re-ranking spot right now rather than putting potentially one of your best games in the second round.
Okay, so let's go down that route, though. So you think they should re-rank these games, right?
Yeah.
So let's say the higher seeds win. Guess who Oregon would be facing in the second round? The 2 teams that you just mentioned.
Okay, but if Clemson wins, Oregon should have to face Oregon should have to face Clemson.
Sure. But if they don't, what you're seeing right now with this current version of the bracket is what you would get. Really what we're talking about here is should the 4 conference champions be guaranteed that bye?
No.
Because that's what changes things in a meaningful way. And I think, yes, let's reward them, man. You won your conference. You should be rewarded with something for doing that during the regular season. So for me, I think this is the right way to go about it, but I know that's a hugely unpopular opinion. The vast majority of people that I've seen talking about this, T-Bone, are on your side of it, or they think that it should be changed and there should be a get rid of the conference tie-in thing here. Just rank the teams 1 through 12 and give the 4 top teams the bye.
Yeah.
I don't feel that way at all, though.
Just because, off of that, and I'm with you. The best ranked team should be rewarded the bye. I don't disagree with that. It's how it always goes. What's the incentive for me to go out there and win every single game? Well, you get a bye in the college football playoffs. But you just go down the assumption. Let's say Ohio State beats Tennessee, and Clemson beats Texas. Clemson should be taking on Oregon in that next round.
Sure. I mean,
because then if Oregon beats whoever they play next, then you're talking about Oregon and Ohio in that final round before the championship.
I just have no issue with this way of seeding it.
I just find it ridiculous that Boise State and Arizona State are getting a bye. They're clearly not two of the four best teams in the country.
They were
honestly
they got the best conference champions.
Georgia barely fits into this category. And like, if we're going to devalue like the conferences, which the playoff kind of did by saying Miami 2 losses not as good as a 3-loss Alabama team, and
Georgia's also ranked number 2, so they would have it either way.
Sure, I said Georgia would be in there. I think they would be the 4 seed if you ended up going
top 4.
this.
They would have been 2 based on the college football playoff rankings.
They should have been 4, but
okay. Oregon, Georgia, Texas, Penn State would have been the top 4 if you had just gone down the top 4 teams in America right now. I like the way they did it. All right, coming up next, let's get into the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN.
We took a trip down to Ted Drew's famous frozen custard over the weekend. My daughter had a Christmas recital for her dance studio, so we decided to go reward it and go enjoy the holidays a little bit. We went out. Obviously, you get that famous frozen custard. My daughter's obsessed with Oreo concretes right now, but we also walked around the parking lot because now the time of the year to be at Ted Drew's. You get to enjoy the weather, but you get to also check out the parking lot filled with Christmas trees. You've got so many different fragrant firs, pine trees. They've got a ton of different selections for huge trees. They also got the Dottie tree named after Ted's wife. You could get Christmas wreaths as well. While you're there, they'll get that famous frozen custard. Take advantage of days like today where it's still nice out, odd in December, but you walk around, you even buy some frozen custard for the holidays and bring it home with you. While you're there, too, walk across the parking lot, check out their gift shop, or you could shop for Ted Drew's apparel, Ted Drew's gift cards, whatever you need to wrap up that holiday season. So make sure you get out there, start building those holiday traditions with your family and friends. Ted Drew's famous frozen custard. It really is good, guys and gals.
Alex, I would like to spend the next 5 or 10 minutes on this person of interest in the CEO shooting.
Okay, no, we're not going to do that.
We're not going to do that
coming
because
up.
you guys said it's too controversial to discuss it.
Save
So
that
we
for your
won't do that on
non-existent
the air.
podcast.
We'll do that on the political podcast, which is
Tebow, what's it called?
right next.
I don't remember.
Right next to the theology podcast, which will be next to the Cardinals podcast, which is next to the dad pod that we're doing.
The theology podcast is just the wildest thing you've thrown out there.
Yeah.
It's wild to me. But anyway, I like the idea. I can't wait to not tune into the episode that you guys won't do.
So instead, Alex has a story for you.
I have a parenting story for you guys. And I got to shout out the small business in Kimmswick, Savannah Rose's spot. My wife took our girls on a cookie walk yesterday.
A cookie walk?
Christmas time, they go down to Kimmswick, and they really do a cool job.
This.
It's really cool. They walk around, everybody's handing out cookies. They come home with a big bag of them. They got a ton of different shops. It's a cool Christmas environment. My wife has done this for the last couple of years, and so obviously we take our daughters, or she takes our daughters. It's a girls' day. So they're walking around. They go into a shop, and some of these shops, obviously, they have all of the souvenirs. She walked into this shop, this Savannah Rose, and my oldest is starting to get interested. And so there was a piggy bank. And so Adelaide, my 3-year-old, walked over and she was like looking at it, and she likes to like pet things. And then all of a sudden my wife heard a big fell off and it smashed on the floor. And so I'm not there. I was out at Verizon for the Winter Classic giveaway. But she texted me and she's like, that poor kid had the look of just like, I am in so much ish right now, because obviously it's scary. You break something glass, it's in a store, and she's just curious. So I had to shout her out because my wife, she did what I would have done. You pick it up, you take it to the counter, you're like, look, my daughter just broke this, please let me pay for it. It's like a $45 piggy bank or something like that. And so like Katie was like,
it's a few bucks, whatever. Here's a couple of bucks.
And it's like, this is a personal business that they're trying to make money off of at this. And so she walked up, she was ready to pay, and this lady was so nice. She's like, look, I've got 5 kids, they've got 5 grandkids. It's like, I understand how this is, but I felt awful for my 3-year-old, because at that moment, you messed up. And so it's like, you don't want to berate them and be like, what are you doing? She's 3 and like, you're interested in it. But what are the freaking odds that you walk over? And Katie said she wasn't picking it up. She was just looking at it and interested in it. And it fell off and it smashed everywhere.
Not great. Not what you're looking for.
Oh, man.
Luca is getting to the point where he's interested in everything. So we go to the grocery store. We try to take him, right? And we put him into the cart. That's the original. That's the starting point.
That's the start.
And then if it's me and Kara together, about 5 minutes in, he's like, I'm out of here. I'm getting out of the cart now.
Yep.
So we now do like the carrying cart, whatever, the shopping thing that you get.
You put him in the basket?
No.
The small one he can push around?
No.
No, don't do that.
He takes the basket.
Mine does that.
He walks around with the basket.
Oh, I got you. Okay, so he gets the grocery
So here's
shop.
the problem. Now he's at floor level.
Yeah.
So as we're walking by anything, it's just Luca going.
Oh, yeah. How many times? Dude, there's been so many times that I have
Luca,
to.
no.
I have to check the cart to make sure we're not shoplifting something, because Adelaide just straight grabs it, throws it in, and you don't even realize
Luca
it.
will see stuff, and he's like, "Oh, we need that. Oh, we need that," and he like throws it into the basket. And I get to the end, and I'm like, "Why do we have 7 things of bagels?"
Yeah. To T-Bone's point of pushing the cart, Adelaide does that when we go to Schnucks. She wants to push it, and so I'm like, just walk behind
Luca
me.
makes it into bumper cars. So
Oh,
it
yeah.
becomes a no-go
Adelaide
for
this kid nonchalantly is just like looking to her side. She'll turn the corner and just run right into people. Like, my God. But there's no stopping them, because it's like, no, don't touch it. And it's like, oh, I'm going to go touch this one, though. And I just, like, I can only imagine the reaction of my wife looking at a 3-year-old. But shout out to her, because she didn't make Katie pay for it. She's like, look, it's Christmas. Merry Christmas. And,
Awesome.
But that's awful.
He's Alex. It's T-Bone on BK. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get to our football pick'em reveal. We'll let you know how we did with our picks going into the weekend. We had a lot of the same ones, so hopefully we did well together. We'll get into that in about 15 minutes or so. But coming up next, Alex has a stat that he said is going to blow our minds. We'll get into that. And he talks with Elliotte Friedman on Saturday. He had an interesting thought about Jordan Kyrou. We'll let you hear it next year on 101 ESPN.
in the draw, and they knock it down into the corner. Oilers go to get it back. They do behind the net, pass it into the near wing. Stetcher's coming down, shoots and scores. Oh, no. Yeah, that's one you want back. Trey Stetcher, who took the penalty and allowed the Blues to get within one, just chucks it to the net. It actually just bounces and takes a hop up over the pad of Jordan Binnington. 4-3 or 4-2 Edmonton with 5:42 to go.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
That's what it sounded like over the weekend as the St. Louis Blues lose 4-2 on the road in Edmonton. First game that the Blues have lost in regulation under Jim Montgomery. With Alex and T-Bone on BK. Alex, you said coming off of that game, you've got a statistic that is going to blow our minds based on what took place in that game. What do you got for us?
As I told my daughter, hold on to your butts. So that goal happened. Blues tied it up. Or not tied it up. They got within one, and you're thinking, oh, shoot, Blues are going to get this back. And then Stetcher scores that goal, and it took 1 minute and 9 seconds after the Blues scored. And so I'm thinking, like, boy, that seems odd. And I feel like that's happened a lot for the Blues. The other team scoring after the Blues score less than 2 minutes or around 2 minutes after the Blues score. So I tried to isolate it. I did 3 minutes or less following the Blues scoring a goal. What have the opponents done? The first 22 games of the season. So this is all under Drew Bannister. The Blues gave up that twice. 2 times they gave up a goal following them scoring in less than 3 minutes. It happened once at 1 minute and 15 against the Vegas Golden Knights, once against the Carolina Hurricanes at 2 minutes and 50 seconds. So twice in the first 22 games of the season. They have done it 5 times since Jim Montgomery has taken over. They've given up a goal.
Monty's the problem.
Yeah, Monty's the problem. So go get another head coach is what I'm referencing right here. The last 5 games, they gave up a goal 2 minutes and 50 seconds against the Rangers following them scoring. That made it a 1-goal difference. 51 seconds against the Flyers that tied the game. Did it twice against the Calgary Flames, 25 seconds and in 1 minute and 6 seconds. That made it a 1-goal game. And then 1 minute and 9 seconds against the Edmonton Oilers. And this was a trend, if you guys remember correctly, I don't have the number of what it was last year, but last season this was a problem. The Blues would score a goal, and you're thinking, okay, finally get some momentum. And then boom, next team scores 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and you're thinking, well, you just lost all of that momentum.
So I'm going to eliminate the Rangers one because that was almost 3 minutes after.
I isolated it to 3 minutes or less.
The other ones were all within a minute and a half, which is basically the next shift.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that I think you got to hone in on is like, you can't be going out there on the next shift after you score or 2 shifts after you score and be giving up a goal. That's unacceptable, and that's way too many times. That is effectively so. Philly, Calgary twice, and then Edmonton. That is 3 of your last 4 games it's happened. That's got to be shut down now.
Yeah, regulation game, and then you win it in overtime, but that's that's an extra point that the other team doesn't have against Calgary.
Now, you probably don't have this, and I'm asking too much information now.
He's just swatting down my great stat.
No. It's so good that I'm interested in it, and I want to learn more about it. I wonder who was on the ice for those goals. Because I'd be really curious to see like the line combinations of what they're putting out there, and is it a consistent theme of the same line that is giving up the goal after they are able to go out there and score one themselves.
So just off that Edmonton Oilers one, you look at that for the Blues, that was the WTF line. It was Alexei Toropchenko, Nathan Walker, and Radek Faksa. And I'll eliminate the New York Rangers one because, once again, that's out of that
3
one.
minutes.
So the Calgary Flames one, I think, is the most interesting because that one happens twice. So bear with me for 2 seconds while I look this up.
Oh, I'll stall. Yeah, okay. So that WTF line, it fits, right? Like, what the...
So it was Kyrou, Thomas, and Dylan Holloway.
That was against Calgary?
That was against Calgary. And then this one was the 4-on-4. So it was Robert Thomas and Pavel Buchnevich on the ice. So different line combinations at 4-on-4, but you gave that one up as well. Turnover.
A little bit of everybody.
So a little bit of everybody. And then I'd have to pull up the Philadelphia Flyers one. But right now you're talking about every line has been on those in the ice in that instance. The 4-on-4 is difficult because that's a situational moment, and Robert Thomas turned the puck over. But when you got Thomas, Shannon, Holloway out there, the WTF line one I think is the most interesting because that's the tone line. That's the line you put out there to try and keep the momentum on your side.
So do you think this is something or nothing?
I think it's something. I think it's something because this was a problem for St. Louis last year to where they would score a goal and you're thinking, okay, they've got the momentum back. Now, how do we grasp this and run with it? And instead, you make a boneheaded play on the ice or whatever you want to label it as. You turn the puck over, the other team scores, and you're thinking, what the heck just happened? You've got to. The winning teams, when they take a lead or when they score a goal, they take that and they build more momentum off of it. Look at how the Edmonton Oilers did in the second period. McDavid scores the goal off of the turnover, and what happened? They dominated the rest of that second period. And by the way, that the Philadelphia goal that happened by the Blues, it was Shen, it was, oh no, we're looking at the wrong one. It was Thomas, it was Saad, and it was Matthew Joseph.
Thomas been on the ice for a while.
Thomas has been on the ice for 2 of those. One was 4-on-4, and, so I do think this is something, and I'm upset that they're on the road because I'd love to ask, how do you fix that? Because you've used 3 different lines in those situations.
Thomas was on for 3 of them, no?
It was the 4-on-4.
What was the one against Calgary? It was Thomas and Booch, and then what was the other one?
That was Kyrou, Shen, and Holloway.
Oh, Shen and Holloway.
Yeah,
okay.
And then the Edmonton Oilers one was your WTF line, so it's been 2. But, I mean, that's what winning teams do. They score, and they take the momentum back. But instead, you score, and you allow the other team to grab it back. And then Edmonton Oilers games, I mean, it's what costed you the game.
I like the stat. I'm not downplaying your stat. I promise.
This whole segment has been downplaying.
The reason... The opposite. I was learning more about it. The reason why I'm going to say I think it's nothing is because I think some of these are just outlier situations. Like the one against, was it Calgary where Benner had the turnover? And I think that was one of these goals, if I'm not mistaken.
He played in the trapezoid.
The turnover.
I think that was on him. So I don't think that's necessarily something that's repeatable or anything. There have been a couple of turnovers. I think the real thing here is not so... I think this is a symptom, not the problem. The problem is the turnovers in their own end. And that's what's leading to, I think, at least a couple of these different goals that have gone against them. It's them the opposition winning the faceoff, getting into the Blues zone, Blues having an opportunity to get it out of the zone, and instead of having a clean exit, it coming back in because they have these turnovers in their own end.
Yeah, Flyers one was the exact same, trying to exit out of their zone. Saad turned it over in his own zone, and it resulted in
that
in the play.
To me is the lesson here. And that is not necessarily a problem of it happens right after they score so much as it is a problem of they've got to get better at that. They have to start improving at exiting their own zone with clean exit passes or clean rushes up the ice, whatever it ends up being. That to me is the problem.
I do think, though, that it's a scenario that they have to find a way to fix in terms of you can't allow a team to push back after you take all that, because that's a big moment in the game. It was a 5-on-3 that you didn't score, but Jake Neighbors gets it at the end of that, or the start of that second power play, and it is a 1-goal game with 7 minutes left. And 1 minute and 9 seconds later, you let the opposition drive up the ice, sustain their zone time, and take a shot where you don't block.
And I don't know how you guys feel about this, because I do think turnovers tie into it. I don't know if it's something long-term, but it is something in the short term. I think what you're seeing in this as well, I mean, you just brought up the Oilers one. Let's just be honest about that goal from the Oilers. That's a bad goal allowed by the goaltending, right? I don't think you're seeing the goaltending prop up the team like you did last year. I think that's part of the symptom to this. Now, it was a problem last year as well.
It was for most of the time that we've seen Jim Montgomery as the coach. They had a .960 save percentage at 5-on-5 up until this weekend.
And up until that goal, Bennington was the only reason.
Stretch that we're talking about here.
Yeah, and up until that goal, Benner was the only reason that game was a 1-goal deficit.
I agree, but I also think, can you guys pinpoint a couple? We've seen only a handful of games, I feel like, this year where it is, okay, the goalie's been the guy that's made that huge momentum-saving save. I don't know if we've seen as many of those.
The thing that's weird is, we're talking about this range of games since Jim Montgomery has taken over as the head coach, and that's the situations that we're talking about. Is under Monty, this has been a problem, and I think under Monty, the goaltending has been spectacular for the most part. And in almost every single one of these games, I can pinpoint a save that either Hofer or Benner has made. That was exactly what you're talking about, T-Bone. So I do agree, though, prior to that, the goaltending had been, in my opinion, at least a little lackluster compared to expectations.
And I also, because I feel like there's been a lot of moments in the games that the goalies made a very crucial save to keep it close. The problem we're not looking back on it is the Blues haven't been able to convert on their opportunities.
All right, I want to stick on the Blues. Let's stick on the Blues. We'll get to this on the other side, because Alex had a really good conversation with Elliotte Friedman, I believe one of the best NHL insiders / analysts in the business going right now. He had some intriguing comments about Jordan Kyrou and how he is viewed nationally. It differs a bit from what we've heard from other national outlets. So we'll talk about that and hear from Elliotte Friedman, what he had to say on Alex's pregame show coming up next year on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK. I got to tell you about my friends over at Victory Men's Health because they're going to help you unlock your inner champion. It is the holiday season. So many people are exhausted right now, but maybe yours is something that's been lingering for a while. You don't feel the same as you once did. You don't have the same energy that you did. You're not getting the same amount out of your workouts as you did. Could be a sign of low testosterone. They could check that for you over at Victory Men's Health. It is a super easy process to book that first appointment. Go over there today at victorymenshealth.com. That is victorymenshealth.com. All you got to do, put in your name, email, phone number, tell them BK with 101 ESPN sent you, and tell them how they can unlock your inner champion. When you do that, you'll be able to go in there for that first appointment. They'll check where all your levels are at, including where your testosterone levels are. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's a weight loss journey that you like to starting at the beginning of the next calendar year. They can help you out with that. Erectile dysfunction, they can help you out with that as well. Maybe you want to learn about their red light therapy programs that they have available for you. It's all available for you today at Victory Men's Health and victorymenshealth.com. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. So we were going to talk about this in the last segment, but I wanted to give it a little bit of extra runtime. Elliotte Friedman was on with Alex over the weekend on his pregame show. He had an interesting thought on Kyrou. For those that aren't familiar with Elliotte Friedman, he does an excellent podcast for Sportsnet. It's the 32 Thoughts podcast. I believe it's one of the biggest podcasts in the hockey world. So Alex, it was a big get for him to get him on the pregame show. Thrilled he didn't have him on our show. Would never want that for our show. Glad you did that on a Saturday.
We didn't have 15 minutes for him.
In my defense, I sent him a text text on Friday, and I said, shoot or shoot, and he texted me back Saturday morning.
No,
So
good on you in all seriousness. It was a really good get, and he had an interesting thought on Jordan Kyrou. Here's what Elliotte Friedman had to say about Kyrou.
Tremendous talent, like no question, tremendous talent. But is he kind of the all-around player that you really win with? Like, I don't think anybody asked that question about Rob Thomas. And I think in a lot of ways, like, Thomas and Kyrou are kind of tied at the hip, right? So people kind of look at them as 1A and 1B. And I don't think anybody questions Thomas as that well-rounded, complete player. I think Kyrou faces those questions.
What did you make of that, Alex?
He falls in line with the way that I'm thinking. Like, I'm not surprised by those comments. To me, what he just said sounds a lot like how Toronto talks about Mitch Marner. Incredible player, but I don't know if you win a Stanley Cup with that guy. And I mean, the proof is in the pudding with Jordan Kyrou. Before Bannister was let go, he's not on the ice with the final 6-7 minutes in the third period. Why? Because they need guys that put the puck north and also make plays. Is Jordan Kyrou playing as a point-per-game player right now? Absolutely. Has he changed the way that he plays? 100%. And can he get to that winning mindset? I believe so. But as it stands right now, he has not shown me the ability to, late in game, tie hockey game, I need to win. I'm not putting him over the boards. I'm putting Robert Thomas over the boards. I'm putting Dylan Holloway over the boards. I'm putting Pavel Buchnevich over the boards. Like, those are the forwards that I think you look at least from my perspective, and say, that's somebody you win with.
You're saying you're up by a goal, right? In that scenario?
Or tied. Up by a goal or tied.
I'm putting him on.
I agree.
Tied, you put him on against the Philadelphia Flyers earlier this season, and you turned the puck over and he lost.
He screwed up.
You can't do that when you need to win, though, man.
Sure, in the playoffs.
I thought we were retooling back then.
Not anymore, man.
He screwed up, he messed up, and it ended up in the back of your net. And that sucks, dude. But, man, I just disagree with him. I disagree. I think that Jordan Kyrou can and is becoming a winning player. I think we had these exact same conversations about Vladimir Tarasenko, man. But instead of the turnovers with Vladdy, because Vladdy was a really good passer, it was the defense. It was, man, is he ever going to be engaged? Is he ever going to play the style? The puck has to be on his stick. I remember there was buzz and murmurs about, dude, everybody hates playing with Vladdy. It's not just that Vladdy is a guy that doesn't play defense, isn't super physical, despite having this huge body that he could potentially use. It's also nobody wants to be out there with him. Nobody wants to be on the same line as Vladdy. So I guess Shin's going to have to do it because he's the only one that's capable of it. Like, Kyrou's a really good hockey player. The guy over the past 2 seasons, at age 24 and 25, had at least 30 goals. Now, he needed to improve defensively, and I think we've seen him become a much better defensive player. It's still not great. It's certainly not perfect, but he's below average now, I would say, instead of being horrific. He's a plus on the season. He's already at 9 goals on the year. He's on pace for like 30 again this year, and he's playing 18 minutes a night. That is not a legit number 1 winger. I don't think the Blues have that currently on the roster. But I believe if Jordan Kyrou is one of your second-line wingers, and you have that number 1 winger in place, and you have a number 2 center in place, you can win a Stanley Cup with that guy as your number 2 winger.
And we'll put this whole interview up on our podcast page after the show so people can listen to it, because he does talk about how, like, Kyrou's a guy that is a really good player to have, but you got to have that number 1 winger. And I think that's what he is saying, is what you're saying. Like, you've got to have the guy that you can put out there so that you're not relying on Jordan Kyrou to go out there. So, like, the series against the Boston Bruins, because you brought up Vladimir Tarasenko's name. Vladimir Tarasenko averaged 16 minutes in that series. Jaden Schwartz averaged 17 and a half minutes. David Perron averaged 18 minutes. Ryan O'Reilly averaged 19 minutes, as you would imagine. That's where I think, and I agree with Elliotte Friedman, Kyrou is at.
I agree.
He's a guy that you're going to put out there and try and win the game in the first 2 periods. But if it's close in the third, I don't know how much I'm relying on him.
I mean, if you're tied or down, I'm putting him on the ice.
If you're down, you're putting him on the ice.
You know what the Blues don't do in 2019 if they don't have Vladimir Tarasenko? Win the Cup. You're right. He was playing 17 minutes a night. That's the role. That's the role of a guy like Vladimir Tarasenko or Jordan Kyrou. Some of these guys that are offensively gifted but do lack a little bit when it comes to their defensive prowess. I think that you can't build a team with everybody being Braden Shen and Ryan O'Reilly and David Perron. You need a little bit of this. You need some firepower, man. And not everybody can be Matthew Tkachuk. Not everybody can be Brady Tkachuk. Not everybody can be these guys that are just these overwhelming physical presences on the ice. It's never going to be Jordan Kyrou. But you need his speed, you need his shot, you need his creation. And if you're going to try to win, I think it is about building around Kyrou, not building without Kyrou personally.
I think the tough part for the Blues in the sense and why there's so much frustration, and look, I don't want this to come off like I'm saying Kyrou's awful and they need to get rid of him. He has changed the way that he has played, and I am very interested to see how he looks at the end of this season with Jim Montgomery, because you might see more from him, much like people are seeing from Mitch Marner right now in Toronto with Craig Berube. The difficult part, though, is you gave him $8 million.
But that's nothing now.
You have to go out there and find a cheaper player to do what you paid Jordan Kyrou to be.
See, I don't think top-line wingers are getting paid $8 million. I think top-line wingers at this point are getting paid $12 to $13 million in the NHL.
Sure, but when you've got three guys making $8 million, you can't go out there and bring in a $12 or $13 million player.
They can absolutely do that next offseason. Why couldn't they do that?
Because you're going to have to start paying all these other guys. You're going to have to pay Broberg. You're going to have to pay Holloway. Like, you're going to have to start paying the people that your other building blocks.
As Falk's contract gets off of the books.
That's 2 years from now, though.
Sure. And like those contracts that you're talking about start 2 years from now. So I think that if you want to go out there, because some of these other players that the Blues have currently on the books are going to be very young. Dvorsky's going to be very young. He's cost-controlled for the foreseeable future. Like, you're going to have to make some tough decisions. That's going to be a thing that is going to have to happen here. But if the Blues wanted to go out, and I think it's more likely a trade than it is a free agency acquisition, if they wanted to go make a move to bring in a significant salary, they can do that. Because the cap is expected to go up by, what, $10 million in this upcoming year?
Something crazy, yeah.
Yeah. Like,
well, Bettman threw water on that fire real quick. And he's like, no, not that much.
I just, loser. You need guys that can score. And if you don't have Jordan Kyrou on this roster, man, like, I don't know where that's coming from. And if you trade Jordan Kyrou, I think you're immediately going to be like, well, we kind of need that.
You're going to be in a tough spot if.
So I guess my question would be this, Alex. What are you suggesting? Like, if you're saying that he's right, you probably can't win with Kyrou, then what do you do? Like, what does that mean?
I don't know if there's anything you can do. Everyone's going to say, like, he's got no trade protection that kicks in. You trade him in July. You don't know what this team is by July. What you can do is you're going to have to wait and hope that Snuggerud and Dvorsky are top players. Those are guys that are players that are winning players in Elliotte Friedman's mind, so that Jordan Kyrou can be a complementary piece. The tough part that you get in, and Curbs even said it today on TMA, and I agree with him, like, people are talking about no trade conversations, like, it's the NHL. We just saw a dude get threatened to be put on waivers if he doesn't waive his no trade clause. You can move people, especially when you're Doug Armstrong. But what the Blues' position they're going to be in is you're going to have to wait to find out what Snuggerud and Dvorsky is, so that if they are the stars, then Kyrou gets to be the guy that you're talking about. He gets to be the Vladimir Tarasenko that goes out there and is relied on as the second-line winger and can score. The tough part and the scary part for the Blues is if those guys become complementary pieces, now you got a ton of dudes who are complementary pieces and you don't have that star.
And that was always the concern.
And I don't want it to just be honed in on Jordan Kyrou. Like, they probably say they need more from Pavel Buchnevich as well.
Absolutely.
Those are two guys that are making $8 million next year that need to be top-line players.
Yeah, see, and maybe that's the place where I'm like most disagreeing here. I don't think $8 million is the price anymore for a top line player. Like, as I look around, who would be a winger that you would say, I'm just going to look into the contract. Who would be a winger that you would say would fit into the criteria of top line winger in the NHL? Like, Matthew Tkachuk fits that, right?
I'd say so, yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's not even just a top line player. That's a superstar. Like, I don't know if
that's what they're looking for.
So
that's what I think they need.
See, I don't think they need.
Who do you think fits into that criteria?
I mean, we just talked about Seth Jarvis. Seth Jarvis is one that comes to mind.
He's on a young contract, though.
No, I think he just signed a contract extension with him. I don't know what it is, but that's one that comes to mind.
Seth Jarvis is making $63 million, but I think he got bought out of the arbitration
RFA stuff.
So, like, another guy that would come to mind for me is Pasternak, right? David Pasternak is top line winger.
He's making like $11 million, right?
And he is making on average $11.5 million. That's a top line player. That's what the going rate is now for those guys.
See, I don't know. I put that in a different category. Like, I think that's a superstar. I think the top-line player is the next step down. And you say that the Blues need a superstar? I don't know if they're wanting that. They just need a guy who can be a top-line player. And I know that sounds weird that I'm like...
I'm struggling to figure out what that means.
Well, and that's what I'm trying to figure out, like, the type of player that I'm imagining. But, like, Matthew Tkachuk and David Pastrnak, yeah, like, those are superstars.
Like, to me, it sounds like you're imagining either one of another Booch or another Kyrou. That's what I feel like you're imagining.
Yeah, I'm trying
I think what you're, and you tell me if I'm wrong, the way that you're kind of describing it makes me think you're looking for not the Kyrou that is viewed less as viewed as kind of the turnover problem, the guy that's got one part of his game that you really don't like. For Kyrou, it's the turnovers now.
But that's a superstar. If you don't have that one thing,
but what I'm saying is, like, I think it's Buchnevich, right? It's not the guy that's making the $11 million. It's more the pack mentality of we're just looking for Buch 2.0, a guy that does everything well, but I don't know if he's great at anything, right?
But then you're in the same spot.
That's what. Well, I'm not. I'm the one that says, like, they need the superstar, you know. But I'm just trying to figure out, like,
Alex, what I'm trying to figure out here is, like, if we don't have a name that fits their criteria that we're discussing, then it becomes that player doesn't exist, and what we're looking for is something that is a figment of our imagination. Like, is Jay Ginsel in the lane of what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think that's probably right along where I'm imagining.
What did Jay Ginsel get this past offseason contract-wise?
$8 million, $9 million a year.
I think he got more than that, if I'm not mistaken. But I could be wrong. 7 years, 63, so $9+ million a year.
Yeah. Where's Kyle Connor?
He signed his a while ago.
7.1. Yeah.
But when was his sign? Because now that the cap has skyrocketed,
and that's what I'm talking about.
Anything that hasn't been signed like
in
last year or
2018.
Or when did Mark Scheifele sign his? That's another one that kind of comes to mind for me. So, like, these are, like, again, I know I'm probably confusing to a lot of people because they're saying, like, these are superstars. You're right.
Scheifele just re-signed at age 31 for $8.5.
Yeah.
But that's a center.
Like I said, I don't have a name to go with it, but there's just a tear break because this team builds as a pack mentality rather than a superstar-based roster. And I don't know if they're looking, like, of course you want a Matthew Tkachuk, but the expectation is the guys that are making $8 million are to be the top-line players, our top
then
players.
I think they're asking too much out of them. That's my honest opinion. Like, if you're expecting to get superstar level production out of non-superstar level pay, then you're asking for too much out of those guys. In my opinion, it would be to me like asking Wilson Contreras to be an MVP level player. You didn't sign him to be that. You signed him to be a complimentary piece, and then your MVP level players stopped playing like MVPs, and you needed him to step up. And thank God for the Cardinals, he did. Now everything else crumbled, but he did live up to his expectations. I think that appears to be, to me, if this is the way that the Blues are building long term, the mistake that they're falling into is they potentially have the same issue that the Cardinals do right now, where they're lacking that one guy that you kind of built everything else around. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, coming up next, let's get to our football pick'em reveal. How'd we do this past week? And we had a lot of similar picks. Hopefully it went in the right direction. We'll do that next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends at Classic Air Care. If you're in the market for a new HVAC system, then now is the time to do it. You got less than a month to do so because on January 1st, the EPA mandating new systems that are manufacturing new refrigerant, which, as Classic Air Care tells me, is going to hike the prices of those new HVAC systems to like 10 to 15% more than where they are at right now. And that means you got to call Classic Air Care today. You're getting knowledgeable technicians. You're getting an incredible staff that's there to help help you. They'll come out, they'll look at your older unit. If you're in the market for a new one, they'll talk to you about what you need, what you don't need, the bells and whistles versus what's mandatory, and they're able to get it done for you in a weekend's time. On top of all of that, there's financing available to you, which is great over at Classic Air Care. So give them a call today, tell them Alex Ferrario sent you, and schedule that evaluation with the HVAC system. Classic Air Care, or you could do so at classicaircare.com. They've been making people comfortable since 1926 over at Classic Air Care.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Blues will be back in action tomorrow night when they visit the Vancouver Canucks. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 8 o'clock with Alex Ferrario, then puck drop at 9 o'clock with the voice of the Blues, Chris Carber. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, Monday Night Football for you as the Cowboys take on the Bengals, and we'll have pregame coverage starting at 6:30. This portion update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, independent Mare Sander heating and air conditioning dealer.
All right, to finish up our conversation on the other side, I've got a few players pulled this up. Easier to do this during the break instead of when we're talking about it. But we're talking about Jordan Kyrou, where he fits into the NHL's hierarchy of like how much he's paid, et cetera, what you can realistically expect out of him money-wise. I would recommend people like go check out how much guys are making across the league right now and what the contracts are. I think people would be a little surprised by where he ranks right now NHL-wise. I think he's like 70th among the highest paid players in the NHL, which means almost every team in the league has two, and in a lot of cases, three players that are paid more than Jordan Kyrou right now. So it's $8.5 million is a lot of money, but it's not what it once was. Other guys that are in that range, Tim Stützle with the Senators, JT Miller with the Vancouver Canucks, Jack Hughes with the New Jersey Devils, Josh Norris with the Senators, Alex DeBrincat is also in that range, Kevin Fiala. Those are the kinds of wingers that are roughly in the same range as Jordan Kyrou is right now.
The three names that I came up with during the commercial break that I just couldn't in the segment.
Couldn't perform under pressure?
Apparently not. I need to figure that one out. Philip Forsberg for the Nashville Predators. He signed the year prior to the Blues signing Kyrou to the extension, and I believe he was $8.5 per year. Timo Meier when he signed with the New Jersey Devils, and then JT Miller. Those are the three names that in my mind, like those guys aren't superstars. They're not like Kachucks and Rantanens and Mitch Marners. They're that next tier down before you just get to like good players. They're guys that you look at and you say they're difference makers, but they're not superstars.
And to be fair, Timo Meier's been less productive than Jordan Kyrou over the past couple of seasons.
Absolutely.
And had a worse plus-minus last year than Jordan Kyrou did. Just to throw that out there. All right, let's get into our NFL pick'em, or football pick'em, because we did have some college games in this one. Alex, we're going to start with you.
Oh, good.
Your one-point play, as is basically every pick that you ever make, is on the NFL side of things. Let's see how you did.
But my 1 point play is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers -7 against the Raiders.
I've got it at 6.5 if you want.
I will take it at 6.5, sir.
Okay. I hate that play.
Mayfield goes underneath, gets it to McMillan, and he's going to stroll in for the Tampa Bay touchdown.
You hear how Kadarius he was? He was like, oh, I have it at 6.5. I will take that. Cool, I hate that play. Well, suck it, BK.
That's funny. One of my favorite teams this weekend with daily fantasy was actually the Buccaneers, so I changed my tune by Sunday morning.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Hit,
yeah, good hit. Alex was a little holding on to his butt through that one, too.
All right, your 2 point play, my 2 point play, and T-Bone's 2 point play.
Hallelujah.
Was the same. I'm sure that went well, right, T-Bone?
Florida for my 2 point play, where the New York Jets have given up on the season.
Yeah, that's my 2 point play.
They're done. Give me the Dolphins minus the 6 points, dude. I don't even know if we need to explain it any further than that.
This is my 2 point play, and the reason that I'm going with it is basically everything that you said, and we've seen the Dolphins do this before, right? The Dolphins beat up on the bad teams. They don't beat contenders. Well, the Jets aren't that. To BK's point, they've given up on the year. I love them minus the 6 points at home, especially. They don't have to play in the cold.
Alex, that was your 2 point play as well?
Yeah, that was my 2 point play.
We've all got the Dolphins. Minus 6 is our 2 point play.
Yeah, what could go wrong?
Yeah.
Good time to the end zone. Got it! Smith, touchdown! The Dolphins win!
Yeah, that's pretty frustrating. That was a tough one. They should kick the extra point in that scenario. It should be mandated by the NFL. We now need you to kick the extra point. It messes with too many over-unders, messes with too many bets.
Technically, we were all correct, though. The Jets just didn't give up until the fourth quarter in overtime.
Yeah.
But we were correct that the team gives up.
All right, so 0 for 3 there on the...
That felt great for me because it's like all of us lost. I'm fine with it.
Honestly, same. All right, your 3 point play, Alex, was also on the NFL side, and you seem pretty confident in this one.
You know another team that's kind of given up on life? The Jacksonville Jaguars. I still think the Titans at least have a better roster than Jacksonville. I like the 3.5 play at home for Tennessee.
This is going to be the Tone Ranger, but I'm going with it anyways. I don't know how you can make this a 3 point play. I don't know how you could trust either of those teams to even pick a side, let alone put it at 3 points.
They give it to Bixby. Trying the left side. At the 5. Stiff arm. Touchdown!
I was right.
T-Bone was right.
I tried to warn you.
But that's how you have tone. He didn't have it directed at me. He just had it directed at the game. BK had it directed at me.
I don't know how you could make that your 3 point play. That's not considered tone?
No, a 3 point play.
Okay. Jaguars turned it over twice. The Titans turned it over not a single time. I don't know how the Jaguars won this football game. It doesn't make sense to me. Nothing about it makes any sense, and yet they lost. And it's Weird game. 3 times they turned it over on downs, did the Titans?
Yep. And then they
So
just
1 and
allow
2
Mac
week for
Jones
your
to go
boy,
straight
Alex
on the field.
Ferrario. 1 point on the week. Not a great way to start things off. We'll see if I can do a little bit better. I mentioned I thought Oregon was the best team in the country, college football-wise, coming into this weekend. Still feel that way now. Not sure that the gap is quite as big as it once was. And T-Bone, let's go ahead and hear it.
Oregon, -3.5 in the Big Ten championship game. I've said it all year long. I'm going to continue to believe it. I'll put my money where my mouth is, and that is that the Oregon Ducks are the best team in college football.
Oh, this is not good for me because my 1-point play is the Oregon Ducks. -3.5. Guys, Penn State, the last 9 times they've been an underdog, 0-9, straight up, 2-7 against the spread. 2-8. And the only reason that this is my 1-point play is I'm not sure how much this game truly matters.
He's going to throw a wide open Tez Johnson. Tez Johnson heading to the end zone. Touchdown, Oregon. 48 yards.
Good pick by us, T-Bone.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Halftime, I was like, oh, man, Penn State is really moving this football.
Yeah.
I can see a backdoor cover coming in play.
All right, so we both get our 1-point plays. T-Bone and I both missed our 2-point play. My 3-point play was also in the college football side of things.
And I think one of these 2 teams is actually deserving of a spot in the college football playoff, and so I will bet on them this weekend to punch their ticket to the college football playoff, and this is in the ACC championship game where I have SMU taking down Clemson and covering the 2.5-point spread. I think SMU has been the better team all season long.
It'll be a 56-yarder. The wind really not a factor. Snap and hold are good. That one is good! At the buzzer! Clemson wins the ACC.
I thought it was happening. I thought the comeback was well, ding for you guys and me getting it wrong. They were down 31-14 at one point, SMU was, and they found a way to come back in this one, scored the touchdown, and then give up that massive return on the ensuing kickoff. Brutal, absolutely brutal. I thought that was going to be the thing that kept them out of the playoff. Oof, that would have been terrible. But I miscalculated on Clemson. I think that was the bigger thing here. They played better than I expected them to. Full credit where it's due. I was just flat out wrong. So I go 1 and 2 as well. Alex, the 2 of us ended up with 1 point on the week. You've already heard T-Bone's 1-point play. You've heard T-Bone's 2-point play. Now let's hear T-Bone's 3-point play.
And you know, guys, if you want to win, and you want to win like T-Bone, sometimes you got to bet against your favorite team. Guys, the last time the Rams played a really good contender named the Eagles in prime time, you know what happened? The Eagles bullied the ever-living hell out of them. I think the Bills are going to do the same thing. I'm shocked it's only -3.5, even though this is a road game for Buffalo. I think they're going to come in, and I think they're going to kick the crap out of the LA Rams.
Blitz. Stafford sees it. Nakua gets a block. He might go. Nakua scores. Touchdown, Rams.
Rams were great. And by the way, Tom Brady, who you just heard there, lost his voice like way before the game and was spectacular on that game. He had his best game as a color commentator yesterday. So we all go 1 and 2, all get 1 point in the week.
Disappointing.
Yeah, that's talk about a terrible week.
We should know what we were due for that when me and BK had 2 of the same picks, and then all 3 of us had 1 of the same pick.
And I thought it was going to be 3 for 3. I thought you were going SMU, and it ended up going a different direction. All right, so a rough start for us. Hopefully we'll get back on track this upcoming weekend with our Pick'em Challenge. We'll get to that on Friday here on BK and Ferrario. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, the Rewind is next. Alex, the college football playoff field is set. We do have our 12 teams, and that means we know the odds on each of them to win the college football playoff this year. The place that I'm going to be betting on this is over on the Circa Sportsbook in the state of Illinois. Download the app today if you have not done so yet. That's because you're going to win the most money possible when you bet with them. Georgia, 5.5 to 1 over on Circa, 4 to 1 on FanDuel. Notre Dame, 10 to 1 on Circa, plus 850 on FanDuel. Penn State, plus 575 on Circa, plus 550 over on FanDuel. Last one, this is my favorite. Tennessee, 35 to 1 on Circa, 25 to 1 on FanDuel. Alex, you're getting the best odds over on Circa. That's why we bet with them.
And you're getting those best odds, and they're also not limiting you based off of winnings, which is something that you deal with at other sports books. They're so confident in their product that they say go compare other lines at sports books. They know that you'll be coming back thanks to those tight money line splits, those high app limits, and the large market bets that Circa Sports Illinois offers. So download it today. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
Hey, Blues fans, it's time to enter the Verizon Discover NHL Winter Classic Sweepstakes. It is your chance to see the Blues take on the Blackhawks on New Year's Eve in the Discover NHL Winter Classic in Chicago. One lucky winner is going to receive 4 tickets to the game, plus a $3,000 gift card. Visit St. Louis area Verizon locations or go to 101ESPN.com and enter to win by December 18th. No purchase necessary. Must be a legal U.S. resident of Illinois or Missouri. Age 18 or older. Get full details at 101ESPN.com. Hey, Alex, if anybody missed anything from today's show, where can they go to find it?
Well, BK, they should go to our podcast page, which is always presented by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
101ESPN.com or the free 101ESPN app is where you can go, or youtube.com/101ESPN STL. There is a bit of a news report to pass along. This comes from Adam Schefter of ESPN. Former NFL tight end and current Battlehawks head coach in the UFL, Anthony Becht, has interviewed for the West Virginia head coaching position. He has also received inquiries about coaching at the NFL level.
Even he likes the country roads better in West Virginia.
That would be a really, really impressive thing for the UFL if they're able to get one of their head coaches into either a head coaching position at the collegiate level or a real prominent position at the NFL level. That would be a huge, huge thing for them. Because they've already seen a few players go on to play in the NFL. One guy tonight, Turpin, I believe it is, for the Dallas Cowboys, a wide receiver, previously played in the UFL, was a star there, and has gone on to the NFL to have a real role. So that's helping. If you now start to see the coaching pipeline go through that as well, that would be really helpful for the league.
Absolutely. I mean, you're not going to, if you don't brag about that, if you're the UFL, but that plays more into I wonder how they shift things moving forward to make it more of a minor league thing for the NFL when you've got different pieces that are getting jobs outside of the UFL.
It'd be great. Be a really good.
Also, that Battlehawks team just imploding.
No more quarterback.
No more coach. What is happening right now?
Is there such a thing as a rebuild in the UFL?
I would be curious to see which direction they would go. Are they going to promote from within? Is there somebody Bruce Gradkowski is a guy that is on their staff? Is there somebody elsewhere that they believe is an up-and-coming coach that they can give him a good opportunity? I don't know.
Mac Brown's available.
Yeah.
Isn't he 80?
So? I mean, what's his name? Wade Phillips is coaching in the UFL.
Touche. I forgot about
That's
that.
That's the opposite direction, though. I'm thinking, hey, who's the young guy that you can give an opportunity to?
Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
You think North Carolina's good? How about the Battlehawks?
That would be amazing. Can you imagine?
You know they would call Bill, be like,
The NFL says no. North Carolina goes in a different direction. He's just like, what? Screw it. I'm going to the UFL.
The UFL's like, hey, Just got a guy a job at the NFL.
You think he would go caca or no?
Oh, no, it'd be like this.
He'd be really proud.
Caca.
I'm on to the Rough Riders.
We're
He's
moving on
Alex
to
and
Houston.
Steve-O on BK. We'll be back with you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.